Chapter 540. Her good friend's embrace and warmth finally allowed Duguqing to let go of all her vigilance, all her wariness, and all her pretending to be strong. After Imperial Father left, younger brother was also sent back after being assassinated. Little Qingyan, do you know that when I saw him being sent back covered in blood, my heart seemed to have died? After Imperial Father left, if something happened to younger brother, what would Imperial Mother and I do? The factions in the Imperial Court are eyeing covetously, and the concubines in the palace are ready to make a move. If there is no one to control the situation, I'm afraid that the 100 years of foundation of our Shang country will be destroyed in a day. For the past half a month, she forced herself to forget the pain, to be strong, and to use her own hands to protect her country and her family. Since the day she returned to the palace, when she saw her Imperial Mother fainted in front of Imperial Father's bed, she did not shed a single tear. 1,000 Li dike collapses because of an ant's hole. She was afraid that if she showed any weakness, she would not be able to stand up again. Imperial Father had taught them since they were young that people had 1,000 faces, and each face faced a different person. Only in this way could they shoulder the different responsibilities of the emperor, father, husband, and son. They had to play these roles well. So at the crucial moment, she could only step forward bravely. Chu Qingyan looked at Duguqing, who was crying like a child in her arms, and could not help but empathize with her. The death of the emperor, and the serious injury of the crown prince, was enough to be a disaster for a country. But Duguqing, with the weak shoulders of a woman, held up the collapsed sky, gritted her teeth and endured, and saved the situation. Her heroic spirit made people respect her. This kind of woman was truly worthy of being called a woman who was not inferior to men. Chu Qingyan's heart was full of admiration for her. It was just that this spirit was too heavy. It bore too much pain, blood, and disaster. If she was not careful, it would crush that weak shoulder. She felt sorry for her. Previously, in everyone's eyes, she was as bright as the sun in the sky. When she smiled, she was like a blooming flower. When she played tricks on people, she was as cunning as a fox. When she helped her friends, she did not hesitate, and was as carefree as a child. Now she was dressed in a palace robe. Her beautiful eyebrows were slender and sharp, and she was 70% cold and 30% smiling. Her lively temperament had been restrained, and her heart was filled with deep worry. She no longer had the sweet laughter from before. Because there was a comparison, there was a difference. It was also because of this difference that made people feel sorry for her. Chu Qingyan thought about her current situation, and felt even more worried. She couldn't help but ask, "Why didn't you acknowledge us in the palace yesterday?" Duguqing wiped her tears and smiled helplessly. "I really want to reunite with you. From the moment I saw you step into the palace, I have been suppressing the surging emotions in my heart. But I don't dare, and I can't. I pretended to be the emperor's younger brother, and took charge of the situation to stabilize the court. My identity could not be revealed. Otherwise, those with bad intentions would take the opportunity to cause trouble. I was criticized and despised by the world. This is fine. But if the news of the emperor's serious injury and coma spread, Shang country would be in chaos. Then, the efforts of mother and I would be wasted." Duguqing sighed. Her identity was only known by her imperial mother, Zhang Kai, and the imperial physician of the imperial hospital. No one else knew about it. Her imperial mother's spirit had been weak for the past 2 days, and Zhang Kai was only a subordinate. She felt helpless and lonely, and didn't know who to confide in. When she heard that little Qingyan and the others had arrived in Shang country, she couldn't wait to see them. Subconsciously, she had already treated them as her good friends. "It's been hard on you." Chu Qingyan imitated Big Ice Cube's usual actions and caressed her back. Then she said, "No wonder there were rumors that the imperial physicians couldn't leave the palace. It's because they all know that the one lying on the bed is the real crown prince, and the one outside is the princess pretending to be the crown prince. And I had no choice. It's a pity that the emperor's injury did not get better. Instead, it got worse. If it wasn't for the many life-prolonging plasters in the national treasury, I'm afraid he wouldn't be able to survive these few days." When Duguqing said this, her tears unconsciously flowed down. "You have already done very well during this period of time. You have done better than anyone else in this position. So, don't be sad and blame yourself. Chu Qingyan could feel her fear, and could not help but soften her voice to comfort her. After comforting her, Chu Qingyan asked, "If the crown prince doesn't get better, what do you plan to do?" Duguqing's watery eyes lit up with determination. "If he doesn't wake up, I will keep on doing this. As the princess of Shang country, I should have the awareness to sacrifice everything for the country and the people." These words shocked Chu Qingyan instantly. Compared to Duguqing, she was still lacking. She didn't have her courage, her boldness, nor her determination. But after saying those words, this strong girl revealed a trace of weakness and helplessness. "But little Qingyan, ethereal will cure him, right? It will, right?" This world was too cold and lonely. She didn't want to continue walking alone. She wanted her brother to be well, and wanted her mother to be well. Even if she had to give up everything, she wouldn't hesitate. "It will. You have to believe that there are true feelings in the world. Miracles exist because of persistence." Chu Qingyan stroked her long hair, and told her in a firm tone. At the same time, she was telling herself that persistence equaled hope. "Okay." The clear voice was already choked with sobs. Chu Qingyan's eyes couldn't help but redden. After the two of them calmed down a lot, Chu Qingyan took the initiative. She sat down and poured a cup of tea for Duguqing to moisten her throat. Then she cut to the chase. "You didn't want to acknowledge us, but you asked me to come here today. Did you run into trouble?" Duguqing admired her observation skills. No one would believe that such an intelligent girl was only a little over 10 years old. But it was also because of her intelligence that she revealed her identity. "Yes, I need your help. I didn't want to ask you. Our Shang country looks peaceful on the surface, but it's turbulent on the inside. I shouldn't have pulled you into this whirlpool, but she wasn't a qualified person to hold power. She could only barely maintain the peace on the surface and not fall apart. But she was worried that after a while, if her brother didn't wake up, she wouldn't be able to control the situation. Everything would turn to ashes. I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't have asked you. Your identities are too sensitive. It's not suitable for you to get involved." After saying this, Duguqing regretted. She regretted that she had caused trouble for little Qingyan. Just as she was regretting, she felt something warm on her hand. She looked down and saw a small hand on the back of her hand. Then she held it tightly. She looked up in surprise. She saw the bright girl smiling brightly. Her voice was as crisp as spring water. "If a friend is in trouble, I'll definitely help. So you're not alone. After crying, please be strong." The smile on her face was dazzling. Chapter 541. Chu Qingyan's unreserved support caused Duguqing's tears to fall like rain. "I never thought that the so-called friends I made in the noble circles of Shang country would all avoid me when I encountered such a calamity. They were afraid that their power would be overturned, and they would be implicated if they were careless. But you, who I've known for less than 3 months, supported me without hesitation at such a dangerous time and did not leave me. I don't know what to say to thank you." Duguqing gripped her hand, her tone sorrowful and emotional. Chu Qingyan gave a pitiful smile. She said emotionally, "When you become a person above others, your friends know you. When you are in trouble, it is you who know your friends. This acquaintance was not the other way around. No matter. I believe that this calamity will be overcome. When the time comes, it will be too late for them to regret. I like this kind of face-slapping plot the most." Chu Qingyan said lightly and teasingly, wanting her to relax and not be hurt by these things. "Little Qingyan, thank you. It's good to know you." Duguqing wiped her tears and gave a smile from the bottom of her heart. "Of course, I am loved by everyone. The flowers bloom when they see me. The grass worships when they see the grass. Little Wang Fei is happy." In order to make Duguqing happy, she even used the catchphrase that she didn't understand when she was young. She was crying from laughter inside. How could Duguqing not know her thoughts? She put away her sadness and returned to being the handsome and calm His Highness the Crown Prince. "Dugujie, oh no, I'll call you Your Highness the Crown Prince in case the walls have ears." Chu Qingyan stuck out her tongue, and then her expression turned serious. "What do you need me to help you with?" I hope you can pretend to be someone. Du Guqing looked at her with the same serious expression. Ooh. Chu Qingyan frowned and asked seriously. My grandfather's granddaughter, Lu Hejuan, she's also my cousin. At the same time, she's also my brother's future wife. However, my grandfather and cousin Hejuan's family are all at the border of Shang country, and 200,000 soldiers are under his control. I don't know why, but 10 days ago, I sent a letter to him, hoping that he could rush back to the capital and help me. However, he didn't reply even after a long time. I suspect that the letter has been cut off. If cousin Hejuan can appear in the imperial palace at this time, it means that my grandfather already knows about this matter, and the army is on the way. Those people who are pressuring me inch by inch will have some fear. At least in the short term, I will have time to plan. Although their father had taught them a lot about how to deal with politics, they had never really fought with swords and spears. When she understood the situation, she was already surrounded on all sides. Plus, she only had the palace guards and 30,000 soldiers guarding the city. How could she fight against the 100,000 soldiers that third uncle secretly raised? Third uncle colluded with concubine Mei and wanted to support third brother to become the emperor. His goal was already clear. Now he was spreading all kinds of unfavorable rumors about Du Guqing, the crown prince. The officials and people who didn't know what was going on were all stirred up. Gradually, there were calls for the crown prince to be dethroned and replaced. If this situation was allowed to spread, then it would really be difficult to do anything. Not only third uncle, but fourth brother was also ready to make a move. Recently, he had been trying to get the officials to work for him. Plus, his mother's family was a famous family in Shang country. More than 20% of the officials in the court were his grandfather's students. So it was a piece of cake for him to get those officials to work for him. The position of the crown prince was slowly being pulled down. Third prince and fourth prince's positions were superior. The court gradually became a tripartite balance of power. After Du Guqing finished analyzing the current situation to Chu Qingyan, she said in a self-reproachful tone, if it was Qing, he would not have given them the chance to take advantage of the situation. Emperor Father once said that Qing is a rare talent that only appears once in 100 years in the Shang nation. If not for those bastards, he would not have. Her words were stuck in her throat. She closed her eyes and didn't continue. The most important thing for her now was not to be swayed by these emotions. Chu Qingyan encouraged her. Don't be sad. Cousin, right? I'll do it. But with my height and age. Suddenly, Chu Qingyan hesitated. Wasn't her appearance a little too young? Don't worry. My little cousin is only 13 years old. She was betrothed to my brother when she was still in the womb. Your height is about the same as a 13-year-old. You just need to make your eyes thicker. She hasn't been back to the capital for 3 years. So you don't have to worry about people recognizing you. Du Guqing explained with a smile. Du Guqing looked to be 16, so Du Guqing should be 16 too. Lu Hejuan was only 13. Did the ancient people really like to betroth children? And there was such a big age gap? That's not right. She and Big Ice Cube laughed so hard that they cried. That's not a problem. I just have to pretend to be his little cousin for a few days. This is an opportunity to eat and drink in the palace. I can't miss it. Chu Qingyan said it lightly, but she knew that this identity was very tricky. It could be easily erased. However, she had someone backing her up. So she wasn't afraid. Speaking of this, Chu Qingyan thought for a while and said, I'll go back and tell Big Ice Cube later. Then, I'll wait for your notice. Okay. I'll seal off the news of your 2 visits to the palace. Don't let anyone find out about your whereabouts. Also be careful. Du Guqing said solemnly. Yes, Your Highness. Chu Qingyan smiled mischievously at her. Chu Qingyan was about to leave when she heard Du Guqing call her name. She couldn't help but turn back and ask, Is there anything else? Take Yi Lingfeng with you. If there's nothing else, don't let him enter the palace. Du Guqing hesitated for a moment before saying, Why? Are you afraid of rekindling old feelings? Chu Qingyan teased. Du Guqing glared at her. If it weren't for our friendship, I'd beat you up. Chu Qingyan shrugged. At this moment, a palace servant came to report. Young Master Yi wants to see your highness. Chu Qingyan winked at her. You two have a good talk. Fate doesn't come easy. During this period, he missed you so much that he didn't eat or drink. Everyone makes mistakes. The first time can be forgiven. If you can't, you can beat him up to vent your anger. But don't wrong yourself. Why do I feel that you're as long-winded as my mother? You're so mischievous. Du Guqing snorted. This is called being smart and understanding. Chu Qingyan said openly, trying to flatter herself. So that's why you're so thick-skinned. After Du Guqing finished speaking, she said to the palace servant, bring him to the front hall. I'll be there in a moment. Yes. After the palace servant left, Du Guqing threatened Chu Qingyan. I'll skin you when I come back. Then she left. Chu Qingyan looked at her back and slowly restrained her mischievous smile. I hope that lovers will find their way together. Chapter 542. Du Guqing came to the front hall, and the first thing she saw was Yi Lingfeng's tall and straight figure. She could still remember the first time they met on the street. Through the crowd, she could see this youth at a glance. He was confident and unrestrained, his peach blossom eyes overflowing with light. Just one glance was enough to make people unable to resist being attracted. Now the world had changed. She stood behind him, but it was like there was a sea of people between them, making it impossible for her to approach him. Which family's youth was so outstanding in the past? The tip of his brow, when the elegance fell, it filled the ground with peach blossoms. Du Guqing was a bit absent-minded. Right at this moment, Yi Lingfeng seemed to have sensed her presence and slowly turned around. Xiao. He looked into her eyes and gently called out. The confident and beautiful youth in front of her had purple eyebrows and a tall figure. He was like a jade tree in front of the wind. Just a slight frown or a smile was enough to make a young girl fall in love with him. Not to mention the current him, with his gentle tone and deep emotions in his eyes. It was even more moving. In the past, Du Guqing had always longed for Yi Lingfeng to treat her gently and lovingly. Even if it was just once, it was fine. But after she confessed to him for the last time, she already knew that this desire was just an extravagant hope. But the current Du Guqing only thought about her family and the world. She only wished for her family's safety and did not think about anything else. But when the person who had ruthlessly forced her to let go of him stood in front of her again, and gently called her Xiao, she was in a daze for a moment. What she had longed for in the past, now that she saw it, her heart was already calm. Because her heart was already riddled with holes. What he said to her no longer had much effect. Young Master Yi, you must have mistaken me for someone else. Although my royal sister and I look alike, we are not the same person. Du Guqing walked past him and sat down in the main seat. Her expression had already returned to normal, as she shook her head with a smile. In the past, Yi Lingfeng had played around in all sorts of places. His ability to observe people's expressions had long been trained to the point of perfection. When he saw that although she had a smile on her lips, the smile did not reach her eyes. His eyes flashed slightly. Xiao was unwilling to acknowledge him. This fact made his heart clench. Xiao, you don't have to hide it from me. The one lying on the bed is the real crown prince. Yi Lingfeng was worried that she would deny it again, so he continued, I've already met with Ethereal. He told me that the person inside is a man, and he looks very much like you. Are you still trying to lie to me? Who would have thought that he would be so persistent in poking through the window paper? Du Guqing was puzzled. Was this answer important? Was it really that important whether she was Du Guqing or not? But what was the point of these answers? Du Guqing smiled, her eyes cold. Young Master Yi, what does it have to do with you whether I am the real crown prince or not? The alienation in her eyes pierced his eyes deeply. What does it matter? Of course it was related. Because he cared about her and didn't want anything to happen to her. He didn't want anything to happen to her. But he already knew that she was Du Guqing and not Du Guqing, so why did he have to expose her? He knew that she was very good. He just needed to look at her from afar. Why did he have to argue with her about whether she was real or fake? Yi Lingfeng, are you really just trying to prove the truth and not have any other reasons? Seeing that he was slightly stunned, Du Guqing sneered. Since it doesn't matter, I still have important matters to deal with. Then I would like to ask young Master Yi to return first. Wait. Yi Lingfeng suddenly spoke. Du Guqing stopped in her tracks and turned around to look at him. She smiled appropriately. Young Master Yi, is there anything else? Whether you are Du Guqing or not, it matters to me. He knew why he was so persistent. Actually, he just wanted to talk to her again and return to the days when they were together. The smile on Du Guqing's face disappeared and was replaced by a faint sneer. It was unknown whether it was self-deprecating or something else. She said, "That's right, I am Du Guqing. But you have nothing to do with me." Du Guqing felt that there was no point in beating around the bush. He would know her identity sooner or later. Since that was the case, it was better to cut the Gordian knot and prevent any accidents. Little Qing, I want to say sorry to you. Regarding the past, I have let you down. If possible, can you give me? Before Yi Lingfeng could finish his words, she interrupted him. Du Guqing looked at him sadly. Yi Lingfeng, do you think there's any use in saying this now? Moreover, what I wanted was your wholehearted feelings, not your pity now. Yes, my father passed away, my younger brother was seriously injured, and there were internal and external troubles. It's very dangerous, but it's not to the point that I need your pity. He didn't like her. Then was there a need for her to waste time and energy on him? The answer was that there was no need. So she didn't accept his emotional charity. Actually, I found that in the days when you weren't around, I found that I had unknowingly fallen in love with you. But it was too late. Yi Lingfeng, let's part on good terms. I'm very sorry for pestering you in the past and causing you trouble. I won't disturb you in the future. Du Guqing took a deep breath and said word by word. When I naively fell in love with someone, he told me that he didn't have a heart. This might be the most ridiculous and naive thing I did in the first half of my life. But I'm still very grateful to you. If you don't fall, you won't get up. She clearly heard that her heart was being torn apart. She clearly said that she wouldn't care anymore. Why did it still hurt so much? Liking someone might be just a look. Forgetting someone might take a lifetime. Yi Lingfeng felt the alienation and coldness from her. His eyes dimmed. Sure enough, he had hurt her too deeply. Even though he had thousands of words to tell her, but at this moment, his throat felt like it was choked with a fishbone, and he couldn't open his mouth. Yi Lingfeng, although we didn't help each other in times of need, let's forget about each other in the pugilistic world. You can be your carefree wanderer, and I'll be my Shang princess. Don't let yourself be wronged because of sympathy for me. Du Guqing smiled at him, and then turned around. Yi Lingfeng clenched his fists. At this moment, his heart was tumbling like a river. He didn't know how to explain to her that he didn't come to find her because of sympathy. That pair of peach blossom eyes hid deep and unfathomable emotions. They flowed secretly, but he couldn't say it out loud. Du Guqing walked out of the hall step by step with her back facing him. Tears streamed down her face, but her steps were firm. She was the Shang princess. Her country was in danger, so she had to carry out her mission. Love and love have nothing to do with me anymore. My life is the country and the world. Chapter 543. When Chu Qingyan and Yi Lingfeng sat in the car on the way back, she could clearly feel the desolation and loneliness coming from him. It was as if he had lost his most precious treasure. Seeing him like this, she couldn't help but think of Du Guqing whom she had met in the palace. She was also in a soulless state the moment she returned. She couldn't help but sigh. In this world, there were so many people. Even if you broke your head, you wouldn't be able to get a chance to leave. Looking at the two of them falling in love at this moment, as a bystander, Chu Qingyan felt both heartache and pity. She was only a bystander. Whoever started the trouble should end it. If they still loved each other, then there was still hope. However, Ruoxin was already dead. There was no turning back. Luckily, her big ice cube had been single for so long and hadn't been enlightened yet. Otherwise, if he was hurt by a relationship, he would have a headache. As she thought about it, the carriage had already arrived at the inn. Coincidentally, everyone was in Big Ice Cube's room. What's so lively? Chu Qingyan asked with a smile the moment she entered. Cheng Yanlua waved at her and said with a smile, "Little girl, you're back just in time. Look, what's this?" As she said that, she opened her hand. Chu Qingyan heard that, and curiously leaned over. She saw a crystal-clear pill lying quietly in her hand. When she got close, she could even smell the strong fragrance of grass in the air. She couldn't help but be surprised. This is? That's right, this is the pill refined from the love grass. I didn't expect it to be so successful. I thought that the first development would be a failure. Luckily, the heavens took pity on me and I'm smart and intelligent. Cheng Yanluo praised herself once before putting the pill back into the bottle and generously handing it to her. Here, this is for your big ice cube. Take this pill and the poison will be neutralized in less than an hour. The poison will be neutralized. The poison will be neutralized. The poison will be neutralized. This sentence kept repeating in Chu Qingyan's mind. She widened her eyes, and her fingers trembled as she held the bottle. She lowered her head to look at it. Cheng Yanluo looked at her dazed expression, and couldn't help but rub her nose. Something was wrong. Why wasn't she wild with joy? Why did she look like she had been knocked silly? What was wrong with the little girl? At this moment, Chu Qingyan suddenly jumped up. The dazed look on her face disappeared, and turned into wild joy. She found Xiao Su's direction and flew over, throwing herself into his arms. Big Ice Cube, you're saved. There was hope. There was hope. He's really saved. Xiao Su pulled the person who suddenly turned around and hugged him into his arms. Yes, we're saved. Hualing and the others looked at the young princess who suddenly jumped up. Countless black lines slid down their foreheads. It was only a distance of 3 steps, but the young princess actually used her qinggong. It was simply shocking. However, as his trusted subordinates, they were also very excited that their master was able to neutralize the poison. For example, Turin was already moving his 10 fingers, planning to have a fist fight with Qinghua to vent his excitement and joy. For example, Hualing was swinging his arms and legs, planning to fly a few laps in the night before returning. In any case, this group of fierce cavalry was very serious at the crucial moment. When they shouldn't be serious, they weren't serious at all. Compared to Xiao Su's indifference, Chu Qingyan could be said to be bewitched. Compared to Hualing and the others, she couldn't compare. She watched as Xiao Su swallowed the pill. When Cheng Yanluo finished checking his pulse and announced that he had neutralized the poison, she suddenly laughed out loud. Everyone was taken aback by her actions. Hualing and Turin looked at each other. Could it be that their master had neutralized the poison, and the young princess was so happy that she went crazy? That wouldn't do. Hualing shouted in his heart. Young princess, come back quickly. Don't go crazy with happiness. However, the words that came out of Chu Qingyan's mouth made everyone unable to restrain their laughter. Ha ha ha. I can go play with Big Ice Cube now. I want to climb high. I want to dive. I want to admire the flowers. I want to go boating. I want all of them. Chu Qingyan circled around the room, jumping up and down. It felt like she couldn't stop. How happy she was represented how much she desired before. What she desired wasn't to go sightseeing, but to be with the person by her side. After everyone laughed, they dispersed. Since their master had been neutralized, they had to pass this news back to the fierce cavalry who were just as worried as them. They stopped searching for medicinal herbs on hand, and waited for the next step. Before Father Chu left, he walked in front of Xiao Su with a serious look in his eyes. Son-in-law, the poison has been neutralized, but you can't casually play with people in the future. Otherwise, you'll have to look for medicinal herbs again. Do you understand? Father Chu's words were very casual, but Xiao Su still nodded in agreement. Although Chu Machen's father always spoke incoherently, Chu Machen was already used to his father-in-law's concern, who was as naive as a child. Chu Machen's father left in satisfaction when he heard his son's reply. The people in the room left one by one, leaving behind only Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su. The little fellow was no longer jumping up and down at this time. She suddenly calmed down with her back to him. Xiao Su was puzzled by her behavior. It was inconceivable that such a lively and active person would suddenly become quiet. But now that the snake's kiss poison had been neutralized, the heavy burden in his heart was lifted and his entire body relaxed. Thus he smiled and wanted to talk to her. Just as he opened his mouth, he saw her suddenly turn around and pounce on him at lightning speed. He faintly saw a flash of tears in the corner of her eyes. He was stunned and she had already pushed him back 2 steps. Just as he was about to ask what happened, he felt the front of his clothes slightly wet. His heart trembled slightly. "Little fellow, what's wrong? Did someone make things difficult for you in the Shang Empire's palace?" The first thing he thought of was what happened to her in the Shang Empire's palace. The person in his arms shook her head. No, I'm too excited. I'm very happy, but I just want to cry." The huge surge of emotions drowned all the worries in her heart. Then, she was surrounded by the surprise of the big ice cube being neutralized. The thing that you've been thinking about all day, the thing that you've dreamt of suddenly got. You'll be wild with joy. But after the huge surge of emotions, you'll start to wonder if it's just a dream. Because your obsession is too deep, you'll hallucinate. Chu Qingyan raised her head, sparkling tears rolling down from her big eyes. "Am I dreaming?" The boiling temperature fell on his chest, penetrating his skin and reaching the depths of his heart. He always thought that his blood was cold, but today he realized that the blood in his body could also be boiling because of a person. Although she was still young, Xiao Su couldn't help but lower his head and place a feather-light kiss between her eyebrows with incomparable tenderness. "It's real, it's not a dream." He curved his lips and smiled. "It's really not a dream? If it's not a dream, why would the big ice cube kiss her? She must be dreaming." Chapter 544. Chu Qingyan did not expect that she would blurt out her thoughts, because she had already seen the big ice cube's darkened appearance. Cough, cough. She immediately jumped out of his arms to remedy the situation. "Congratulations, the big ice cube's poison has been neutralized." "Congratulations to me too. I can start touring the mountains and rivers." She touched her head, hoping that it was not too late. Xiao Su flicked his sleeves and sat back on the chair, ignoring her words. Chu Qingyan was stunned. The big ice cube also had such a childish side. It was as if the sun rose in the west and red rain fell from the sky. But at this time, Chu Qingyan had also regained her composure. As a martial artist, it was not good to experience great joy and sorrow. "Big ice cube, look, where there is a will, there is a way. We have finally completed the last step of our long journey." Her tone was rather emotional. Xiao Su's face warmed slightly. "This journey has been hard on you." Whether it was seeking medical treatment or obtaining the red stone fruit, ice crystal flower, and love grass, if it were not for this little fellow, he would have already reincarnated. He did not forget the little girl who crawled on top of him at that time. When she smiled, she revealed a curved crescent moon. She was innocent and carefree. Now she was like a bamboo shoot after the rain, growing taller and taller. Her smile was still bright and her eyes were bright. She had shed her naivety and learned to protect herself. He had witnessed her growth along the way. 1 year had already been like this. Perhaps in 3 or 4 years, she would transform into a butterfly. He was looking forward to how far this little fellow would grow in the future. No matter when and where, he would accompany her and witness her growth. Chu Qingyan found that he was actually looking at her in a daze, and felt a sense of defeat. Although she was still young and her beauty could not be seen, it was not to the point where people would be in a daze just by looking at her. Could it be that the big ice cube's standards were too high? Chu Qingyan felt very sad in her heart. But at this time, she did not forget what she had promised Duguqing. She pulled herself together and interrupted his thoughts. She raised her smiling face and spoke in riddles. "Big ice cube. Guess who I saw when I went to the palace today?" "Duguqing." Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. "How do you know?" Chu Qingyan originally wanted to give him a surprise, but did not expect that he was right. "I guessed." Xiao Su smiled. When she came back, her footsteps were light, and it was obvious that she was in a good mood. Previously, she had been worried about Duguqing's injuries, but now her face was relaxed, so he guessed that she had met Duguqing, and it was a Duguqing who seemed to be in good condition. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but admire the big ice cube's wisdom. She stopped smiling and told him about how Duguqing had pretended to be Duguqing to save the Shang kingdom. After saying that, she couldn't help but sigh. "If I were in your shoes, I might not be able to be as persevering and courageous as elder sister Dugu. Truly admirable." For a woman to be able to do this, It is indeed admirable. Xiao Su nodded. Chu Qingyan did not forget about what she had promised Dugu Qing today. So she said to him, "Elder sister Dugu has a plan, which is to let me pretend to be Dugu Qing's fiancé, Lu Hejuan, and then use the Chen family's prestige to intimidate those rebels who are ready to make a move. What do you think?" No. Xiao Su rejected the idea without even thinking about it. Why? Is it because this plan won't work? Chu Qingyan's face was anxious. Her big ice cube was good at strategizing, and since he said that, there must be a reason. If the big ice cube rejected it, then how was elder sister Dugu going to intimidate those rebels? An unnatural expression appeared on Xiao Su's face when he heard her question. Just now he did not consider the plan itself, but because he heard that she was going to pretend to be someone else's fiancé, he suddenly felt unhappy and rejected it without thinking. Actually, he felt that there was no problem with this plan. But there was a problem with this person. He was not willing. You agreed to her? Xiao Su asked as if he did not hear her question. Yes. Chu Qingyan nodded honestly, but she was confused. What did the big ice cube mean? This little fellow actually agreed without asking him? This knowledge made Xiao Su even more unhappy. Let her change to someone else. Xiao Su said firmly. That won't do. The only person who fits the criteria and can be trusted by her side is me. At this time, it is better to entrust the person closest to you, right? Chu Qingyan was a little troubled. She was worried about Dugu Qing, so she did not notice her big ice cube's awkward mood. Xiao Su frowned and did not speak again. Instead, he thought for a moment and called out to Turin outside the room. Turin instantly appeared in the room. Master, what orders do you have? Xiao Su did not think and directly said, I want a list of all the people who are enemies with Dugu Qing and want to usurp the throne, as well as the number of soldiers they have and the deployment of the city defense in the Shang nation. I want to see all the information by tomorrow afternoon. Yes. Turin immediately replied. Chu Qingyan did not react. Big Ice Cube, what are you doing? Weren't they talking about impersonating Lu Hejuan? Why did the conversation suddenly change? She did not understand. You can't tell? Xiao Su raised his brows. Chu Qingyan heard this, and a bold guess appeared in her mind. Don't tell me you want to do it yourself. Why not? Since there was nothing to do and the little fellow cared so much about this Dugu Qing, then he would help her complete this friendship and find something for the fierce cavalry to do. Recently, these piercing cavalry had nothing to do and had been complaining that grass was about to grow on their heads. He would take this opportunity to pull them out for training. No matter how sharp a knife was, if it was not constantly sharpened, it would rust. Chu Qingyan was overjoyed. She took a deep breath and her eyes glistened. Big Ice Cube, you're the best. Actually, she had thought of asking the Big Ice Cube for help, but she could not bring herself to do it. Because she wouldn't take advantage of her harmonious relationship with Big Ice Cube to use this method to kidnap him to do something for her. The Big Ice Cube had been in this kind of scheming all year round, and was probably tired of this kind of life. Why should she make him work so hard? However, she did not expect the Big Ice Cube to take the initiative to ask. This made her very surprised and happy. Unfortunately, Chu Qingyan did not expect that the reason why Xiao Su had this idea was because he thought that she belonged to him. How could he let others touch her? Even if it was an impersonation. Chu Qingyan did not know that her Big Ice Cube was already so possessive at this time. She could imagine that when she grew up. The two were deeply in love, but it was a pity that they did not know. They only knew how to silently sacrifice for each other. Chapter 545. Cheng Yanluo said that Big Ice needed a good rest after detoxifying the snake's kiss poison, so Chu Qingyan didn't want to disturb him and left his room. The fact that Big Ice Cube was willing to help Dugu Qing made her feel relieved. From what she knew, with such a strong opponent like Big Ice Cube, those who had bad intentions would be wiped out in a matter of minutes. She had wanted to borrow some men from Xiao Laiqi to help, but now she didn't need to. Chu Qingyan broke into a smile, and her footsteps became lighter. But just as she turned the corner, a godlike person appeared in front of her. Chu Qingyan almost bumped into her. Fortunately, her martial arts had improved recently and she reacted quickly, so she avoided the disaster. She looked up and saw Yanluo. Sister Yanluo, why are you standing here? Are you sleepwalking? It was already late at night, and Chu Qingyan couldn't help but ask when she saw Gu Ruoyan standing there motionlessly. Cheng Yanluo heard her teasing, but she didn't play with her as usual. Instead, she looked worried and hesitated. Finally, she spoke as if she had made a decision. The moment she finished speaking, Chu Qingyan realized that something was wrong with her. Seeing how conflicted she was, Chu Qingyan stopped smiling. Then, just as she was about to suffocate from her expression, she heard her question. Didn't he go to the palace early this morning? Why hasn't he come back yet? Cheng Yanluo didn't mention his name, but Chu Qingyan immediately understood. Chu Qingyan's eyes lit up. Wow, it was rare to see Yanluo so concerned about Ethereal. Could it be that the two of them had developed some kind of relationship while she was so busy these past few days that her feet barely touched the ground? At this moment, Chu Qingyan came up with an idea. She looked at her innocently and pretended not to understand. Sister Yanluo, who are you talking about? I don't understand. Cheng Yanluo knew that she was being deliberately mischievous, but at this time, she needed her answer. She could only grit her teeth and listen to her. Who else? It's Morongju. You mean Ethereal, he? Sighed. Chu Qingyan's face suddenly changed, and she sighed with a little helplessness. If it was any other day, Cheng Yanluo would have seen through her clumsy acting. Unfortunately, she was too concerned at this time. She was frightened by Chu Qingyan's expression. What do you mean? What's wrong with him? Is the crown prince of the Shang kingdom unwilling to let him go? She had heard that doctors couldn't leave the palace of the Shang kingdom. Could it be that Morongju was also imprisoned? Seeing her like this, Chu Qingyan couldn't help laughing in her heart. It was so fun to tease a person. No wonder Yanluo and Duguqing liked to tease her so much before. However, at this time the show had to be completed. Chu Qingyan lowered her eyes and looked sad. After I entered the palace today, I wanted to see Ethereal and ask about Sister Duga's injury. Unexpectedly, the guards said that all the doctors who entered the palace were detained to prevent them from revealing the princess's condition. I asked when they could be released, and then the guards said, Chu Qingyan paused and glanced at her, but didn't dare to continue. Cheng Yanluo's face was slightly pale. She grabbed Chu Qingyan's shoulder and asked in a panic. What did they say? Tell me quickly. Damn it, I'm dying of anxiety at this time. Chu Qingyan was about to fall apart from being shaken by her. She immediately raised her hand to stop her boorish behavior. Then she replied dizzily. He said that the princess can only be released after she recovers. But my ass. Cheng Yanluo exploded. When did the little girl become so hesitant? She was so anxious. Chu Qingyan felt that she really couldn't hold back her laughter, but she still stood her ground, because she was a qualified little matchmaker. But the guard said that if anything happened to the princess, all these people would be buried with her. Even Ethereal is no exception. This is the imperial order. Chu Qingyan's voice was no longer trembling, and she said it all in one breath. Then, as soon as she finished speaking, there was dead silence. Chu Qingyan was relieved. But when she saw Yanluo's pale face, she felt that this joke had gone too far. But she felt that it was not a good idea for the two of them to continue wasting their time there. It was better to give her a strong medicine. Maybe she could be revived. Therefore, his guilt vanished in an instant. It can't be. His medical skills are so high. Even father said that he is the most intelligent disciple he has ever taken in. Cheng Yanluo mumbled. It was as if she was saying this to Chu Qingyan, but at the same time, it was as if she was comforting herself. Chu Qingyan saw this and couldn't help but sigh softly. Sister Yanluo obviously cared about Ethereal, but why couldn't she get over the hurdle between them? Sister Yanluo, actually Chu Qingyan felt that it was about time to tell her the truth. Otherwise, she would be guilty if she really caused trouble. At this time, Yiling Feng appeared out of nowhere. His footsteps were a little unsteady, and he was about to walk toward Xiao Su's room. Cheng Yanluo saw him and immediately stopped him. Young Master Yi, Morongju entered the palace with you. How is Duguqing's health? Can she be cured? When the three words Duguqing came out, Yiling Feng's dispirited eyes regained some spirit. Ethereal said that the injury is serious, but as long as the injured patient has a strong will and with medicine, there will be no problem in curing her. Cheng Yanluo heaved a sigh of relief when she heard this. Then she asked again, if she can't be cured, will all the doctors be buried with her? I've never heard of such a thing. Moreover, little Qing is so kind. She won't do such a thing. Yiling Feng shook his head. Little Qing was pure by nature. Although she was in power now, he believed that a leopard couldn't change its spots. Little Qing wouldn't kill him next time. Cheng Yanluo was puzzled. But little girl, didn't you say? Where's the little girl? Cheng Yanluo suddenly realized that she had been tricked by the little girl when the corner of her snow-white clothes fluttered around the corner. Cheng Yanluo's furious roar reverberated throughout the spacious inn. Little girl, don't think that I can't catch you just because you have excellent qinggong. If you have the ability, don't let me see you again. Chu Qingyan heard her roar, stuck out her tongue, and slipped away. It turned out that being a matchmaker was not easy at all. She had to be cute, glib, ugly, and run fast with qinggong. Otherwise, she was likely to die young. At this moment, a mysterious man in black appeared in Shang Guoyi's Lord Mansion. Bold assassin, how dare you break into Lord Kuan's mansion? Tell me who sent you. Lord Kuan, who was Dugu Qing's third uncle, questioned coldly. I'm from Xixian. I've been entrusted by my master to come here and help you. The man in black bowed and said. Chapter 546. King Kuan frowned and said with disdain, Xishuan? Xishuan came to meddle in Shang country's affairs. Don't you think it's too meddlesome? And who does your master think he is? How dare he send someone to my king's residence to criticize us? He's overestimating himself. The moment King Kuan finished speaking, the man in black revealed a murderous look. The cold air that came towards King Kuan made his face stiffen. Just as he was about to change his expression, the man in black spoke. 20 days ago, Shang country's emperor was hunting in the hunting grounds. Suddenly, 2 white tigers appeared and frightened Shang country's horse. The horse panicked and ran into the forest with Shang country's emperor. When the guards found him, Shang country's emperor had already died from an arrow. Am I right? Everyone knows about this. What's the use of saying this? King Kuan saw the man in black's mocking look and his heart trembled. Then do you know that the 2 white tigers were bought by a certain lord from Nansong Kingdom? The man in black said with a faint smile. King Kuan's expression changed. How did you know? It doesn't matter how we know. Now that Lord knows about our strength, to cooperate or not. You have 2 choices. The man in black said without a trace of politeness. Who do you want to deal with? King Kuan finally understood their purpose. King of England, Xiao. The man in black didn't hide it. He would find out sooner or later anyway. I heard that the King of England, Xiao's princess consort, is on good terms with Shang country's princess. Now that Shang country is in trouble, I don't think they will sit back and do nothing. Lord must have heard of Xiao's name. So do you think you can go against him with your strength? King Kuan was tongue-tied. King of England, Xiao? He's in Shang country? The invincible Xiao Wang, who was famous throughout the world, who became a general at a young age and single-handedly seized 3 of the enemy's generals. The man in black looked at him in disdain. How could such a person be worthy of cooperating with his master? If it wasn't for the fact that the 3rd prince's faction had a greater advantage in the imperial court, he wouldn't look for them. Then who is your master? King Kuan looked at him with a face full of questions. I can't tell you that. The man in black said bluntly. King's heart. He couldn't bear to have his weakness in the hands of the man in black in front of him. Obviously he was prepared. His weakness was in the hands of the person behind him. It was a terrible feeling. All right, let's work together. King Kuan agreed sullenly. Kuan's King Kuan. If you find anything, please. If you find anything. If you found him, please contact me. If you find anything. If anything. If you find anything. And as if you find anything. Him. If you find anything else. He. At this moment, a middle-aged man in a loose green robe walked out from behind the screen. Su Lu, what do you think about this? King Kuan turned around and asked him immediately. If he's from Sichuan, based on his tone and aura, it's very likely that he's a secret guard in the palace. Those who are qualified to use a secret guard in the palace are the princes of Sichuan's royal family. Excluding Xiao Su and the young Xiao Ran, there's only Xiao Ho and Xiao Yao left. However, according to our intelligence, Xiao Yao has been unrestrained and indulged in wine and women. He has long declared that he has no intention of taking the throne. Therefore, the possibility is not high. Su Lu was King Kuan's strategist. The plan to assassinate the emperor of Shang country and assassinate Du Guqing came from him. Su Lu had been by King Kuan's side for many years and had long become King Kuan's right-hand man. King Kuan would discuss matters with him. This time was no exception. Therefore, there's only Xiao Ho left, the prince who is rumored to be weak and sickly. I've seen this prince before and vaguely feel that he's not as harmless as he looks. To be able to lay low for so long, he must be quite capable. Su Lu continued. Then should we cooperate with them? Although they had agreed, it didn't mean that they couldn't go back on their words. Su Lu waved his hand. The friend of an enemy is an enemy. Since they're enemies, we can make friends with the enemy of a friend for a short period of time. We'll endure the humiliation first. When the time comes, if you want to get rid of the donkey after it has outlived its usefulness, wouldn't that be just a word from you, Lord? Hearing this, King Kuan's expression softened. All right. Previously, during the assassination, we didn't figure out the target and injured Du Guqing, who was disguised as the crown prince. Now that we've alerted the enemy, the assassination can no longer be used. Why don't we borrow this person's hand to take down the crown prince? We'll talk about the rest when the time comes. Su Lu nodded. No one would have thought that the target of the assassination was Du Guqing, but the one who was sent to the palace for treatment was Du Guqing. However, everyone knew that Du Guqing liked to dress up as a man. Therefore, the two of them didn't suspect anything. In fact, Du Guqing was just pretending to be someone else. The next day, Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su entered the Shang country's palace. Du Guqing had received news from Chu Qingyan yesterday that Xiao Su wanted to help her. At this moment, she was sitting upright and waiting for Xiao Su's arrival. When the three of them met, Du Guqing bowed deeply to Xiao Su. His Royal Highness, our Shang country's century-old foundation is in your hands. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. Princess, are you not worried that this prince is plotting against your Shang country? He had the Shaolai cavalry in his hands. If he took advantage of the situation, the Shang country's throne might change hands. Du Guqing smiled when she heard that. I trust you. At this moment, Chu Qingyan interrupted. Our big ice cube is not the kind of person who would steal from others. Hearing Chu Qingyan's childish words, Du Guqing couldn't help but laugh. Xiao Su turned around and sat down. He looked up at Du Guqing. I'm indebted to Princess for trusting this prince. This prince already understands the Shang country's current situation. The two bigger powers in the imperial court are the third prince's faction and the fourth prince's faction. The others are nothing to be afraid of. Regarding these two factions, does Princess have any useful information? Du Guqing didn't expect Xiao Su to get to the main topic so quickly. She sat down on the main seat. She looked ashamed. I don't have anything valuable in my hands. However, I suspect that third brother colluded with third uncle to murder my imperial father and brother. It's just that I don't have any evidence. Evidence? Xiao Su frowned. Leave this matter to the Shaolai cavalry. When the time comes, we will tell Princess the truth. Okay, thank you, His Royal Highness. Du Guqing said gratefully. In fact, before coming here, Xiao Su already had evidence that King Kuan and Third Prince colluded to murder the Shang country's emperor. However, it wasn't enough to prove it. That was why Xiao Su said that. The day after tomorrow is the end of the year. What are the arrangements in the palace? Xiao Su looked at her seriously. Because Imperial Father passed away, there can't be a big celebration. They just let the officials have a New Year's Eve dinner in the palace like in previous years. Du Guqing replied. Princess, why don't you make use of this banquet to get rid of Third Prince, King Kuan and Fourth Prince's factions? Long delays may lead to trouble. Xiao Su said slowly. What? Not only was Du Guqing shocked, even Chu Qingyan was shocked. Big Ice Cube isn't joking, right? Could the tripartite balance of power and influence be eliminated so easily? However, the person in front of her looked calm, and didn't seem to be joking at all. Duguqing reacted and asked solemnly, I wonder what your Highness King has planned? I would like to hear the details. Chapter 547. Duguqing's steadiness and self-restraint made the arrogant Xiao Su look at her in a different light. He couldn't help but think of his good friend. It seemed like he still had a long way to go after her. He deserved it. Xiao Su didn't answer her question. Instead, he turned to ask the person beside him who seemed to be deep in thought. Qingyan, if you were King Kun and had a large army in your hands, you had been secretly spreading rumors that the crown prince couldn't wait for his majesty to pass down the throne and killed him, then what would you do at the banquet? Chu Qingyan did not expect Big Ice Cube to suddenly call out her name, but she still calmed herself down and thought about it. She had already seen Shangguo's information on the carriage, and it was still fresh in her mind. From what we know, the Kun king is short-sighted, cunning, and not smart enough. He is not an easy person to get along with. However, the reason why he was able to reach his current position after so many years, raise an army without anyone knowing about it, and secretly win over the officials in the imperial court, was all because of a strategist by his side, Su Lu. Su Lu is a bold and rash person. He is a strong opponent. Every plan he makes is very thorough, but he likes to take risks. Therefore, I think that he might let King Kun make things difficult for the crown prince during the banquet, and collude with the officials in his camp to frame the crown prince. In the name of taking revenge for Emperor Shang, he will abolish the crown prince. King Kun has 100,000 soldiers in his hands. He has nothing to fear. If he can't force the crown prince to abdicate, he won't mind shedding all pretense of cordiality. After all, at this time, the crown prince has nothing to rely on other than 30,000 city guards and palace guards. The empress of the Shang kingdom, also known as Empress Chen, came from the Chen family of the Shang kingdom's defender general. For generations, they protected the Shang kingdom. Since ancient times, in order to maintain the balance between the imperial harem and the court, the emperor would take some measures to prevent his relatives from interfering in politics. However, the Chen family had been generals and officials for generations. They were also worried that their achievements would affect the emperor. Furthermore, their family produced an empress. In order to not make things difficult for Empress Chen, they were also afraid of the Chen family. Therefore, when Duguqing's maternal grandfather married his daughter to the Shang kingdom emperor, he wrote a letter asking for the entire family to move to the border to help guard the border. Of course, the Shang kingdom emperor agreed. Although it was one thing to trust in his subjects, it was hard to predict a person's heart. Hence, the Shang kingdom emperor's trust in Empress Chen. However, the Chen family was at the border. Although there were people from the Chen family in the imperial court, they did not have much military power, let alone be compared to King Kun's army. The reason why Chu Qingyan had such a conjecture was because she had received news from the fierce cavalry that the king of Kun was mobilizing his troops frequently. It seemed like he was heading towards the Shang nation's imperial capital. Chu Qingyan shook her head and said, if they can create enough public opinion, you will be the ones in the wrong. They can declare you guilty in any way they want, be it killing the emperor, seizing the throne, or colluding with other nations. The winner is the king, and the loser is the bandit. Duguqing leaned back in her chair in a daze. That's right. Even imperial father and imperial younger brother tried to kill them. What else can these people not do? Chu Qingyan could understand her thoughts. She had never had to worry about food and clothing since she was young. How could she know that people were sinister? For the sake of power and wealth, they were shameless and heartless. And now, she had this realization because of the pursuit that Big Ice Cube had encountered along the way. If it was someone else, it would be understandable. But even his father, the emperor, did not let him go. It simply overturned her three views. She could not imagine what the heart of the person who ordered the killing of his own son was made of. Was it made of iron? Sister Dugu, you don't have to worry too much. This is just my guess. Maybe nothing happened. Seeing her shocked expression, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but comfort her. Duguqing shook her head and smiled bitterly. After hearing what you said and combining all the recent signs in the imperial court, I seem to be able to feel some signs. Recently, King Kuan's attitude towards me in the imperial court has been getting worse and worse. The reason why he is so fearless is probably because the end of the year is approaching. Chu Qingyan was silent. She didn't know how to comfort her. Qingyan is right. King Kuan will definitely make his move at the banquet. Xiao Su's words were concise as he came to a conclusion. Just now, you said that we should get rid of them at the banquet. Since we don't have the military strength to fight against 100,000 soldiers, and we are in a disadvantageous position, what should we do? Although she had more or less figured out King Kuan's deployment, Chu Qingyan still couldn't imagine how to turn the situation around. Give them a taste of their own medicine. Xiao Su's eyes flashed as he said to the two of them. Duguqing guessed. Are you trying to turn the public opinion around? And then? That's right. Since he can spread rumors that the crown prince has evil intentions, then you can also send people to stir up trouble and lead the public opinion to burn him and the fourth prince. I don't need to waste my breath on what you should do. Xiao Su nodded slightly. Chu Qingyan continued. This way, if we want to take King Kuan down at the banquet, we will have a reason. What about the fourth prince? Hearing this, Xiao Su looked at Duguqing. Is it very difficult to convict someone of a crime? Duguqing's eyes widened when she understood. Admiration for Xiao Su surfaced in her eyes. It's not difficult at all. Fourth brother has done many illegal things in secret for so many years. Any one of them can ruin his reputation. Whether it was raping a man from a good family, keeping a male pet in the palace, accepting bribes, or embezzling money from the treasury, any one of these would be enough to make him suffer. Chu Qingyan understood immediately. What Big Ice Cube meant was that regardless of whether the two of them would take action at the banquet, they would strike first to gain the initiative. The crimes were already made. If there was no evidence, they could fabricate them. Although this method was cruel and simple, it was the most effective and direct method at the moment. But I'm still worried about the 100,000 generals in King Kuan's hands. What if King Kuan is angered and sends his army straight into the imperial capital? The people who will be injured will be the innocent people. Duguqing was worried. Xiao Su said indifferently. To catch bandits, first catch the ringleader. If the main pillar is gone, these people will be like a group of dragons without a leader. As long as you keep an eye on the third prince and King Kuan, everything else can be easily solved. With that said, he asked Duguqing to take out the defense map of the imperial capital. Then he instructed her on how to arrange for people to stand guard and form a protective circle around the imperial capital to achieve an impregnable effect. This would prevent people from taking the initiative to attack in desperation. Chu Qingyan leaned on the table and looked at Big Ice Cube, who was circling the defense map. She couldn't help but fall into a daze. New Year's Eve was coming. Was Big Ice Cube going to show her his true appearance? She was looking forward to it. Chapter 548. After setting up the city's defenses, Xiao Su asked Duguqing to secretly contact the ministers who supported Duguqing's faction. As for the matter of not being able to contact the great general, he left it to Xiao Liqi to handle. Duguqing listened to Xiao Su's arrangements and noted them down one by one. For example, on the day of the banquet, how to strike first before King Kuan spoke, and how to arrange the manpower in the palace, etc. The more she listened, the more Duguqing admired Xiao Su's meticulousness. He even analyzed the personalities of the ministers in the court, such as who could be used, who could not be used, how they might behave on the day of the banquet, who was the enemy, and what kind of people could be used to control what kind of people. The originally chaotic situation of the court was suddenly cleared up with a few words from him. Everything became clear, and everything was sorted out clearly. Chu Qingyan, who was at the side, looked at the big ice block, who was just sitting there with a normal expression. The moment he opened his mouth, he had the aura of turning his hand over and overturning the clouds. She sighed in her heart. This kind of man, even if MT Tai collapsed in front of him, his expression would not change. He was good at observing the situation, devising strategies, and turning the tide with a few words. In the blink of an eye, he had a plan that was linked together. Up until now, she had only seen such an outstanding man, and he was the only one. It was no wonder that Xishuan and the others were afraid of him. How could a prince with outstanding martial arts, overflowing with talent, a broad mind, and good at strategizing not be feared? But in her eyes, her big ice block was becoming more and more likable. After discussing all the details of the banquet, Chu Qingyan stretched her body. She felt like she had not done anything, but she had used up all her brain power to think. She felt weak all over. On the other hand, Big Ice Cube, who was in control of the situation, did not seem to be affected at all. As expected, ordinary people like them should not be compared to him. Duguqing also relaxed at this time. She had a plan in her heart, and her mood was not as tense as before. Originally, Duguqing wanted to call for lunch, but at this time, Zhang Kai happily came to report that the crown prince had awakened. Hearing this, Duguqing did not care about anything else. After instructing the palace servants to serve Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su, she quickly left. Big Ice Block, I feel that many things are slowly getting better. Chu Qingyan looked at Duguqing's back and tilted her head with a smile. Xiao Su nodded. After we settle the matter in Shang State, where do you want to go? How about going to Jiang? Although I don't want to be a third wheel, I want to go and join them. Haha. Chu Qingyan could not help but feel that her treachery was laughable. Sure. Xiao Su smiled. At this moment, there was nothing he had to do, and there was nothing holding him back. The military power in his hands had already been taken back. Other than the title of Princing, he had nothing else to do. It was a good opportunity to accompany the little fellow around, and accompany her as she grew up. Big Ice Block, after the banquet is over, you have to fulfill your promise. I want to see your real face. Chu Qingyan rested her chin on her hands and looked at him with a smile. Since the Big Ice Block had decided to show her his real face, then she did not need to be timid. She did not need to worry about whether he would feel inferior because of his disfigured face. Because the word inferior had never existed in the Big Ice Block's dictionary. Since he could show it openly, then she would accept it openly. Regardless of whether that face was full of bumps and hollows, or if it was burned horribly, she could accept it. The Big Ice Block was someone she cared about. Then whether it was good or bad, she could accept it. However, if he was like what was written in the novel, disfiguring his face was just a means to protect himself, then she would be even happier. Chu Qingyan laughed. Whether the Big Ice Block was handsome or not, he was an unshakable god in her heart. What if I disappoint you? Although Xiao Su didn't care much about his appearance, he was still satisfied with it. However, he wanted to tease her a little. Disappoint? That won't happen. I have always had faith in you. What we care about is the beauty in our hearts. You can pretend that you don't see anything on the outside. Chu Qingyan's heart skipped a beat. Would the Big Ice Cube really mind? She thought about it and finally made a painful decision. How about you not show me your real face, Big Ice Block? Why? Xiao Su's heart tightened slightly. Could it be that the little fellow cared about his appearance? Chu Qingyan did not notice the slight change in Xiao Su's tone. She scratched her head and tried to think of the right words. Actually, in my heart, the Big Ice Block's image is already very high. No matter if you are disfigured or not, it will not affect you at all. Beauty is in the bones, not in the skin. At this point, Chu Qingyan suddenly laughed brightly. Big Ice Block, people are superficial and only look at the surface. However, I am not a superficial person. I have a pair of fiery eyes and look at the inside. So you are the most handsome man I have ever met. Xiao Su relaxed because of her laughter. He always knew that the little fellow would not disappoint him. Then he would not disappoint her even more. The day after tomorrow was the banquet. He was looking forward to it. Meanwhile, in the Kuan Palace, the four people in the study were discussing the banquet's actions. The third Prince Duguhi, the Kuan Palace Su Lu, and the man in black that appeared that night. As expected by Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan, they were preparing to force the crown prince to step down during the banquet. However, on the roof of the study, two people were leaning on the tiles and listening attentively to the people below. Young master, the information we received from our investigation is correct. That person was sent by Xiao Ho to deal with the King of England. I did not expect them to be able to gather so many assassins in Shang country. Xuanqi Zimo sighed. Higashio Motetsu's lips curved into a smile. His natural charm spread across his brows. People who achieve great things are good at enduring and scheming. They hide in the dark and wait for the best opportunity to strike. Xishuan, the third prince, is such a person. There were indeed many talented people in this world. Then should we inform Miss Chu and the others? Xuanqi Zimo asked. Hearing this, Higashio Motetsu looked at him strangely. Have you forgotten our purpose? He remembered it all along the way, okay? It seems that he forgot about you, young master. However, Xuanqi Zimo did not dare to say this out loud. This subordinate will always remember it in his heart. He swore. Higashio Motetsu finally retracted his gaze. In order to protect Xinyue, he had already been tormented for a year. He could not continue fooling around. At this moment, Xuanqi Zimo suddenly said, "Oh right, young master, our moon palace's people seem to have appeared in large numbers near Shang country's capital. It seems that they are going to make a move on the King of England. I did not expect father to still not give up." Higashio Motetsu's lips curved into a smile. His tone was emotionless. "Let's go. There will be a good show the day after tomorrow. Let's just wait and see. Now accompany this young master to pick out a New Year's gift for the little girl." Higashio Motetsu stood up and left gracefully. Xuanqi Zimo scratched his head. He did not tell Miss Chu about their situation but wanted to pick out a gift for her. This kind of master he did not understand. Chapter 549. It was almost the eve of the new year. Even though the death of the Emperor of Shang had caused the entire capital to be in mourning, the arrival of the New Year's Eve had diluted much of the sadness. Even though they didn't dare to openly decorate the streets with lanterns and decorations, the imperial court was currently in a terrible state, and no one would care about such things. Thus, the citizens still pasted up couplets and window decorations. The atmosphere of the new year gradually became stronger. The streets and alleys were filled with people wearing new clothes. Children didn't know how to worry as they ran around with windmills. Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su sat in a horse carriage as they passed through the bustling city. They returned to the inn and arranged a safe place for Father Chu and the rest to stay. Because tomorrow night was destined to be a chaotic night, Chu Qingyan couldn't bring her parents to the palace to stay with them. Thus, before the chaos in Shang was resolved, it was better for them to stay in a safe place. Looking at the lively and adorable children outside the window, Chu Qingyan smiled. It's good to be a child, carefree and worry-free. When she said this, it was as if she had forgotten that she was only a 10-year-old child. It was just that she had grown 1 year older after the new year. Xiao Su followed her gaze and saw that there were children around 8 to 10 years old playing around. He couldn't help but find her words funny. Chu Qingyan felt her head become heavy. She couldn't help but look at the person beside her. She saw his hand on her head and his eyes were smiling. "Don't forget, you're just a child too." She stuck out her tongue. "Have you seen such a strong child?" Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. He thought that she was envious of the children's carefree and peaceful lives. He couldn't help but think for a moment before asking, "What color do I like?" Chu Qingyan wanted to keep up with the big ice block's jumpy thinking. However, she still answered honestly, red. Red was blazing. It didn't just represent joy. It also represented a heart that was constantly burning. "I'll remember it." Xiao Su answered without any head or tail. This time, it was her turn to raise her eyebrows. The big ice cube was acting very strange today. However, on the second day, her room was filled with red, vermilion, peach jujube, ruby, silver, and other different styles of clothes, shoes, hair accessories, jewelry. Chu Qingyan was dumbfounded. This is a sea of red. At this time, Xining was standing on the side with a basin in her hands. Seeing Hualing instructing Xiao Lai to bring in a chest full of clothes and accessories for her master, she couldn't help asking, "Sir Hualing, what are you doing?" Hualing put his hands behind his back and pretended to be deep in thought for a moment. Then he said with a serious expression, "Master is giving the little princess clothes for the new year." Xining was confused. "That's it. Actually, Hualing also didn't know why his master suddenly ordered them to go to Shang country and collect all the clothes and things for girls when he came back yesterday. They were all men and actually did this kind of thing. However, due to his master's prestige and the fact that the person they were sending was their family's little princess, they had to do it even if it was embarrassing. This was the first time their Xiao cavalry went to a place filled with rouge and powder. Everyone came back with a body full of fragrance. That Liu Guang who could go 3 days and 3 nights without washing or sleeping on the battlefield took 3 baths when he came back. How pitiful. Xining felt that they were acting strange and brought water into the room. As soon as she entered, she saw her master sitting on a vermilion chest holding a golden hairpin in his hand and biting it into his mouth. "Master, what are you doing?" Xining was shocked. "I'm trying to see if this golden hairpin is really made of gold. It's quite heavy when I hold it." In the past, she didn't pay attention to these things, but now that she had nothing to do and was thinking about traveling the world with Big Ice Cube in the future, and raising such a large group of Xiao cavalry, it would definitely cost a lot. She thought that if these were made of gold, she wouldn't wear them and hide them. In the future, when she didn't have enough money to spend, she would just treat it as spending one item at a time. Xining patted her chest. That's good, that's good. This servant thought that you wanted to commit suicide." Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes at her. Was she the kind of person who would commit suicide? However, when she saw Xining's plain and clean clothes, she thought that she had never been harsh on this little girl. Why did she dress like the palace maids in Shang Kingdom's palace? Thinking of this, she picked out a few bracelets, hairpins and beads that she liked from several boxes and stuffed them into Xining's hands. "Here, this is a New Year's gift for you." After saying this, Chu Qingyan stubbornly bit those hairpins. It was so painful. Xining hugged those bracelets and hairpins, her expression somewhat absent-minded. Ever since she followed this master, she was different from other people. In the Wang Fu, it wasn't that she hadn't seen the servant girls who were bullied and reprimanded by her master. Compared to them, she couldn't be too lucky. Moreover, she had seen many things along the way with her master. She felt that her vision had broadened, and she had become more confident. These were all given to her by her master. She silently vowed in her heart that she wouldn't let her master down in this lifetime. "Master, you're so good to this servant." Xining couldn't help but sigh. Chu Qingyan had just been pricked by a jade pendant, causing her to grimace in pain. When she heard Xining's words, she couldn't help but laugh. "You were bought over by this little thing. In the future, if someone offers a higher price than me, won't you sell me?" Xining immediately said righteously. "Master, Xining is a person who cannot be corrupted by riches and honor, cannot be subdued by might, and cannot be moved by poverty." "Haha, you've actually memorized these words. All right, I still feel that I'm not good enough for you. How about I arrange a marriage for you? I found that the ancient people really liked to arrange marriages when they were children. How about I arrange one for you too? How about Jean Xian?" Chu Qingyan winked at her. Xining suddenly blushed. "Master, you're naughty. You're naughty." Then she put down the water and ran away. Chu Qingyan laughed loudly. Very quickly it was night time. The palace was hung with red lanterns and red silk. The palace maids went in and out, extremely busy. At this time, Chu Qingyan was wearing a red male outfit. Her hair was tied up with a silver hairband, and 2 or 3 beads fell from the hairband. Her eyebrows were thick, and her facial features were deep. She looked just like a handsome young man. Although their identities had been exposed, there were still some things that had to be covered up. Otherwise, if news of Xishuan, Lord and Princess Consort participating in Shang country's internal affairs got out, it would be troublesome if it was used by people with ulterior motives. Moreover, Big Ice Cube was a missing person. There were some things that should be kept low profile. What the hell was Ming Ming? Giving people the feeling of looking at flowers through the fog was a high-class thing. She liked it when people wanted to see but couldn't understand. She finished dressing up and just as she stepped out of the room, she saw Hualing waiting at the side. "Little master, master invites you in." Chu Qingyan was confused. Shouldn't they be heading to the palace banquet now? Why was Big Ice Cube looking for her? Chapter 550. Chu Qingyan followed Hualing to a quiet little garden and saw the person standing under the wisteria. Today, he was still wearing a black robe, but it was a bit more luxurious than usual. The corner of his robe was decorated with a cold lotus that was wrapped in golden silk. Large golden lotuses bloomed on the hem of his robe. When the night wind blew, those branches and leaves danced in the wind, creating a beautiful scene. He stood with his hands behind his back, looking at her from the side. His posture was handsome, solemn, and his eyes shone brightly. She couldn't help but think of a saying, if one's appearance was good, then one's expression was also good. His facial features were clearly ordinary, but there was a feeling that made people unable to look away. She thought, in this world, there would always be a kind of person who, regardless of appearance or status, could give people a feeling of amazement and warmth. Perhaps when others heard her say that His Royal Highness, who killed without blinking, was like this, they would snort in disdain, but she still firmly believed it. This person amazed her years and warmed her time. Xiao immediately saw Chu Qingyan walking over. Seeing that she was wearing red, he was very satisfied. He had never paid attention to a woman's appearance, so he had never paid attention to the little fellow's clothes. But yesterday, when he saw her enviously looking at other people's children wearing new clothes, he was a bit puzzled. Had he neglected her too much in the past? That was why he had done what he did today. He bought the most luxurious gold, silver, jewelry, clothes, shoes, and socks that women in Shang loved the most. But today, when he carefully looked at her clothes, he felt that there was no difference. No matter what the little fellow wore, it would still look good in his eyes. If it was someone else, Xiao wouldn't have the patience and energy to observe. Big Ice Cube, what are you looking for me for? Chu Qingyan walked in front of him with a face full of questions. The night was getting darker, and the light from the palace lanterns penetrated through the wisteria and fell on his body. With his back to the light, she could only see that his ink-black eyes seemed to be filled with tiny bits of starlight. For a moment, they were so bright that people couldn't help but be infatuated with them. She heard him say, "Tonight's palace banquet will probably last for a long time. I thought that I wouldn't be able to give it to you in time." Things. Chu Qingyan was a bit confused. At this time, she saw him take out a golden tablet from his sleeve. It was only the size of a palm, and then handed it to her. Chu Qingyan's gaze was instantly attracted by this golden tablet. She took it. She had a habit of putting things in her mouth every time she saw golden things, so she didn't think too much of it and directly bit. This bite stunned Xiao, the fire spirit, and himself. Xiao's eyes twitched. Listening to their report, she had been testing the hardness of the jewelry in her room the entire afternoon. He was a bit confused, but now that he saw it, he was speechless. Hualing's face was filled with fear. Could it be that the little princess was so hungry that she didn't care about anything and just wanted to eat it? That was a golden tablet. It wasn't food, it wasn't food, it wasn't food. It could buy a lot of food. Hualing was already going crazy. Chu Qingyan's face was filled with awkwardness. It's over, she made a fool of herself again. It was all because she tried it too often in the afternoon that she bit it out of habit. Woo. After feeling helpless, Xiao still felt that he had to explain. Otherwise, if she pawned the golden tablet on a whim one day, then he would be bankrupt. This is a golden tablet. It can transfer all of my assets, including the Su family bank that is spread across the various countries, the rewards from the past 10 years, the income from the dozens of shops, the harvest from the farms. Before Xiao finished speaking, Chu Qingyan was already stunned. She didn't know what he said next. She never knew that the Big Ice Cube was so rich. Did she find a rich man? The answer was yes. Su family bank? She listened the entire time and only caught this word. It seemed a bit familiar. Su family bank is one of the top 10 banks in the world. It is managed by Jinling. Even Master's assets and businesses are managed by him. Hualing explained after hearing this. Jinling. She had only heard of this person's name, and had never seen him before. She was already curious. Even Water Spirit was curious. He's the most comfortable one among us 6 spirits. Hualing said with emotion. At this time Xiao lightly said, This king doesn't mind sending you to the bank to enjoy a few days of peace. Hualing immediately shook his head and waved his hand. Master, you should spare this subordinate. Those abacus and account books will dazzle this subordinate. Xiao glanced at him and didn't say anything. At this time, Chu Qingyan finally realized what she was holding in her hands. It was a mountain of gold and silver. Big Ice Cube, how rich are you? She heard her voice tremble slightly. Richer than you think. Xiao couldn't help teasing her. Hualing was dumbstruck from the side. Master, who had been ruthless to him just now, was suddenly gentle to the little princess. He couldn't accept this. Chu Qingyan felt that this golden token was too heavy. She couldn't hold it and immediately stuffed it back into his hands. I can't take such a valuable thing. What if I accidentally lose it? It's fine. If it's lost, then it's lost. I've already passed down the order. Jinling and the others will only recognize you and me. This golden token is just a symbol of your identity. Xiao explained unhurriedly. Is this good? You don't need to feel too burdened. There is no reason for me to take back something I've given out. Xiao revealed a faint smile. Chu Qingyan looked at the golden token that had returned to her hands. Her heart was filled with waves that could not be calmed down for a long time. She looked at the back that was gradually walking away, and her heart seemed to be gently poked. This was the first time someone had given her such a valuable thing. They didn't ask for anything and just placed it in her hands. She pressed the golden token against her chest. In the garden where the cold wind was blowing, she felt a warmth in her chest, as if something was growing there. On the way to the palace banquet, Xiao thought about the little fellow's expression and couldn't help laughing. The family business would be handed over to her sooner or later, but he felt that she didn't have enough ability right now. But when he found out that she was saving money for the coming days, he had this idea. Xiao could support her. But thinking about their conversation just now, he couldn't help twitching his eyes. Big Ice Cube, then wouldn't I become the richest child in the world? You can think of it like that. Thank you, Big Ice Cube. No need to be so polite. Congratulations on growing up another year. Congratulations, you've grown another year older. He was only 21 years old after the new year. How could he be old? Hualing felt that his master, who was in a good mood just now, suddenly had dark clouds hanging over his head. He couldn't help shrinking his shoulders. His master's mood swings were so scary. The little princess loved to punish subordinates. Chapter 551. Although this banquet wasn't a grand one, the palace banquet wouldn't be too bad either. The moment Chu Qingyan entered, she saw officials dressed in official robes and sitting behind long tables with their families. It was a peaceful scene. Palace maids surrounded the entire hall like colorful butterflies, dazzling one's eyes. Below them was a burning earth dragon, making the entire palace feel as warm as spring. Chu Qingyan and Xiao attended this banquet as Du Guqing's close friends. At this moment, someone came to lead her to her seat. Originally, Big Ice Cube wanted to come in with her, but he was called away because Du Guqing had something to do. Not long after, hundreds of officials had gathered in the hall. Because she was young and kept a low profile, she didn't attract much attention. Therefore, she drank the tea in front of her and listened to the discussions in the hall. Hey, have you heard? His Majesty was killed by King Kuan. A minister whispered mysteriously to the person next to him. What? You heard it too? I heard it from official Yang yesterday. The minister next to him was shocked, then lowered his voice. I see. I heard it from official Lu. Official Lu seemed to have heard it from official Dong. Is this true or false? The minister also lowered his voice. I don't think it's groundless. You see, King Kuan has been speaking rudely to the crown prince recently. There's no respect in his words. Maybe he already has the intention to rebel. The minister next to him shook his head. Chu Qingyan covered her mouth with her hand as she drank her tea. Her lips curled into a smile. No matter how soft their voices were, they could not escape her ears. She realized that ever since her martial arts had improved by leaps and bounds, her eyesight and hearing had improved as well. Nothing within 30 feet of her could escape her ears. It seemed that she had already created public opinion. When the time came, she just needed to add fuel to the fire at the banquet to ignite suspicion. The mission that Big Ice Cube gave her tonight was very simple. It was to protect Dugaching and learn more. She had just finished her cup of tea when someone sat down beside her. It was Yi Lingfeng. "Why are you here?" Chu Qingyan was slightly surprised. "I'm a little worried about little Qing." Yi Lingfeng looked a little worried. He had a token in his hand, so he could enter without any obstructions. When Chu Qingyan heard him calling her Xiao Qing, and Xiao Qing more and more smoothly, she was a little surprised in her heart. Although the person in front of her acted as carefree and unrestrained as when they first met, she could clearly feel that the pair of peach blossom eyes no longer had the previous cynicism. Instead, it was like the peace after 1,000 sails. She thought, the runaway wild horse is finally going to settle down. At this moment, Xiao Su also sat down. He was not surprised to see Yi Lingfeng. He turned to look at Chu Qingyan and said, 1 hour later. Pay attention to the situation. All right. Big Ice Cube meant that the plan would start in an hour, so they had to pay attention to see if anyone was taking advantage of the opportunity to assassinate them. Yi Lingfeng asked, "Is there anything I can help with?" "Protect yourself and the people you want to protect." Xiao Su raised his wine cup and heard his question. He could not help but look at him and tease him. Although he knew that his good friend was teasing him, it was also the truth. Yi Lingfeng nodded and did not say anything else. Soon, Dugaching, dressed in the Crown Prince's palace robes, entered the hall surrounded by the crowd. "Greetings to your highness." Everyone bowed in greeting. "My beloved subjects, rise." Dugaching sat on the dragon throne and raised her hand to everyone. After everyone was seated, Dugaching scanned the crowd and looked puzzled. "Why don't I see King Kuan and fourth royal brother? Were they delayed on the way?" When she said this, the officials looked at each other. It was disrespectful to appear later than the crown prince at such an important moment. Chu Qingyan saw everyone's reaction and laughed inwardly. These two would probably be delayed for a long time before arriving. Third prince stood up and said, "Royal brother crown prince, third uncle might have been delayed by something on the way. Please forgive him." People in fourth prince's faction also said so. Dugaching looked magnanimous. "It's all right. Third uncle is an elder. As juniors, we should understand. Fourth royal brother's residence might be further away. It's all right. It's just that it's not a good idea to keep everyone waiting. Let's start the banquet." When the officials heard Dugaching's words, they admired this benevolent crown prince. At the same time, they did not like King Kuan and fourth prince. No matter how arrogant they were, no matter how far their residence was, how could it be big enough for such an important occasion? Just as Dugaching's voice fell, someone hurriedly ran in. "Your Highness, bad news. Fourth prince quarreled with someone in the brothel, and even injured someone. This has aroused the public's anger." A guard knelt in front of Dugaching and reported. When he said this, the entire hall was in an uproar. "What's going on?" Dugaching pretended to be surprised and asked. Fourth prince went to participate in the selection of the top courtesans in the capital. After getting drunk, he had a disagreement with someone. Then he got his guards to beat the other party up. Now the other party won't let fourth prince leave. Now a group of people are still causing a ruckus on the river. The guard reported in detail. To be able to open brothels in the capital, there must be someone behind them. So this time, Xiao Su designed a good show based on fourth prince's licentious nature. He made him offend a few aristocratic families in the capital at the same time. Moreover, the selection of the top courtesan was held on the river. With Xiao Lai around, it was wishful thinking for fourth prince's people to spread the news. So no one found out about it. Dugaching was furious. Fourth royal brother actually went to such a place at such a time, and even injured someone. Guards! Here. Someone stood up. Send someone to bring fourth prince back to the palace. When he sobers up, this crown prince will interrogate him. Who is right and who is wrong, this crown prince will give the people an explanation. Dugaching coldly ordered. Yes. Zhang Kai immediately went to give the order. Everyone already had a bad impression of the fourth prince. He indulged in debauchery, bullied men and women, and used his strength to bully the weak. Now that this matter had happened, everyone disliked him even more. On the other hand, the crown prince was handsome, upright, and had great ambitions. This was what a crown prince should be like. With a comparison, His Royal Highness the Crown Prince's image was once again raised. Chu Qingyan tapped the table lightly. The fourth prince was probably going to lose his power by tomorrow night. His drunken assault was just the beginning. Once Du Guqing revealed the other evidence of his crimes, he would no longer have the chance to make a comeback. After Du Guqing dealt with it, she smiled again. Today is a joyous day. Everyone, don't let these small things affect the mood. Come, let's raise our cups. Cheers to Shang country's prosperity in the new year. Just as she finished speaking, a voice came from outside. Lord Kuan has arrived. At this time, everyone had raised their wine cups high. Before they could drink, they were stopped. With Lord Kuan's failure to arrive on time and the appearance of this node, everyone disliked him even more. Chu Qingyan curved her lips. An important character was about to appear. Chapter 552. Due to the foreshadowing just now, Lord of Kuan felt the unreadable gazes from the crowd the moment he appeared. He could not help but feel his scalp tighten. He had left early for the banquet this time. Who knew that a shrew would pester him at the door saying that she was pregnant with his child the moment he stepped out of the palace? This caused his tigress to fly into a rage. He only cared about appeasing her, and did not make it to the palace banquet. Furthermore, his tigress refused to enter the palace in a fit of anger. No matter how he tried to persuade her, he could not persuade her and could only enter the palace alone. At this moment, Du Guqing already knew about this. She asked with a concerned expression, "Third Imperial Uncle, where is Third Imperial Aunt? Why didn't she come with you?" Hearing this, awkwardness flashed across Lord Kuan's face. His tone was stiff. She was not feeling well, so she did not enter the palace. Lord Kuan was not good at hiding his emotions. The impatience on his face towards the Crown Prince caused those officials who remained neutral and supported the Crown Prince to become even more dissatisfied with him. Su Lu, who was standing beside Lord Kuan, saw that the atmosphere in the hall was a little strange. She could not help but whisper for Lord Kuan to quickly sit down. After Lord Kuan received the message, he returned to his seat. Du Guqing glanced at the crowd, and a smile appeared in her eyes. Then, she waved her hand and let the eunuch sing the part where the officials would celebrate the new year. Originally, this part was the last. However, after discussing with Xiao Su, this part was brought forward. This meant that the plan was about to enter the final stage. Chu Qingyan took a bite of the pork shoulder. Hearing this, she could not help but turn to ask the person beside her. Big Ice Block, what did Lord of Kuan give? Xiao Su picked up some vegetables with his chopsticks and put them into her bowl. His expression was indifferent as he said, "Something that will only do him harm." There were too many people around, so she did not ask further. She lowered her head and saw the carrots in her bowl. She looked at the person beside her with a heart full of complaints. At this moment, she realized that Yi Lingfeng had not touched his chopsticks. She could not help but look at him. She saw that his gaze was fixed on the main seat. Chu Qingyan followed his gaze, and saw that he was looking at Du Guqing. Chu Qingyan shook her head. The furthest distance in the world is that I'm sitting in front of you, but you don't know. Now it was King Kuan's turn to present his gift. Actually, King Kuan did not pay much attention to this gift. This was because their original plan was to make things difficult for the Crown Prince during the song and dance performance, not long after the banquet started. Who knew that things would go wrong from the moment they left the banquet? Now their plans were disrupted. Su Lu told him that there was a change in the plan. They would only take action after the gifts were presented. Only then did King Kuan suppress his emotions. At the same time, he sent someone to inform the third prince. King Kuan brought a box forward and said, "Your Highness, this is the scripture that my wife copied. I hope it can bless our Shang nation with good weather and the safety of Guotai." Du Guqing's face was filled with joy. She let someone take the box and said, "Thank you for your kindness. May I know what scripture Third Imperial Aunt copied?" This. King Kuan looked troubled. How would he know what was written inside? This afternoon, She suddenly said that the coral birthday painting that she had prepared was missing. He did not know who suggested that she use the scripture that she copied every day to replace it. King Kuan was in a hurry for tonight's big event, and did not care what she took. However, he did not expect the crown prince to not follow the rules. He felt that he was in a passive position now. King Kuan's expression had already told everyone that he did not care about this gift at all. There was no sincerity at all. Bad review. Su Lu sat below and exchanged glances with one of Xiao Ho's men in black, who was disguised as a follower. She suddenly felt that something was wrong with today's events, but she couldn't tell what was wrong. Du Guqing looked at King Kuan's expression and smiled. However, it quickly disappeared. She said with an unnatural expression, "Third Imperial Uncle doesn't know either. Let's open it and take a look. I heard that Third Imperial Aunt has good handwriting. Let me take a look." King Kuan felt that something was out of his control. However, he did not know how to correct it. He could only let Du Guqing do as she wished. "Is it starting?" Chu Qingyan put down her chopsticks and looked at everything in the hall with full attention. At this moment, the officials were still eating and drinking. The hall was filled with joy. Chu Qingyan heard Big Ice Cube's deep voice and replied, "Yes." She immediately entered a state of high alert. Du Guqing took out a stack of papers from the box. Originally, she was casually flipping through them, but when she saw the words on them, her expression suddenly changed. Then, she quickly skimmed through the papers, and the expression on her face became worse and worse. When the officials in the hall saw her expression, they couldn't help but stop. They had no idea what had happened. Even King Kuan was baffled. At this moment, Du Guqing looked coldly at King Kuan. She suppressed her anger and said word by word, "Third Imperial Uncle, you deceived the Emperor and colluded with Third Imperial Brother to murder my Imperial Father. You colluded with the officials to usurp the throne. The evidence is conclusive. What else do you have to say? Crown Prince, don't slander me. Although you are the Crown Prince, I am still your Imperial Uncle. Please speak more politely." King Kuan's expression turned serious. Although the Crown Prince said that he did it, he could not admit it. "Slander me?" Du Guqing sneered. Then, she waved the letter in her hand and said, "It's written in black and white. It has your handwriting and your seal. How can it be fake? Take a look for yourself." After Du Guqing finished speaking, she threw the letter in her hand from the main seat. The paper was too light. It flew out when it was thrown. Some landed at the feet of the officials. When someone picked it up to take a look, their hands trembled. This one was about how to secretly transport the white tiger over from Nansong Kingdom. Another one was about how to arrange for people to hide in the forest with the officials in charge of the hunting ground. There was also this one about how to mobilize the officials to force the Crown Prince to abdicate the throne, and how to assassinate the Crown Prince who was traveling on the road. Not only was there King Kuan's handwriting, there was also the Third Imperial Prince's seal. The plot was about killing his brother and father. The methods were so cruel that it made one's hair stand on end. Du Guqing looked at King Kuan and the Third Imperial Prince with hatred. "Don't blame Imperial Sister for suddenly being assassinated. It turns out that your target was me. Imperial Sister was innocently implicated. If you didn't accidentally take the wrong scripture, I and the officials would still be in the dark. Third Imperial Uncle, Third Imperial Brother, my Imperial Father has treated you well. You actually used such a method to repay him. Do you still have affection in your eyes? Do you still have humanity?" Things had already come to this point. King Kuan was no longer afraid of falling out with them. There was no way out now. He sneered, "Affection? Humanity? What are those? Is it comparable to ascending to the throne?" Su Lu, who was at the side, originally wanted to hint to her lord to calm down and not fall into their trap. However, she didn't expect her lord to confess without being pressed. The atmosphere froze, as if a fight was about to break out. Chu Qingyan's hand was already on the soft sword at her waist. Chapter 553. She thought that it would take a lot of effort for King Kuan to admit to these crimes, but she did not expect him to agree so easily. Du Guqing could not help but look at Xiao Su. This person's ability to read people's minds was really impressive. Du Guqing's gaze met with Yi Lingfeng's, but she looked away without a trace. This was a critical moment, and she should not be thinking about love. King Kuan's words caused an uproar in the hall. King Kuan, how can you do such a disgraceful thing? Those who have disloyal hearts should be punished by everyone. The censor stood up and reprimanded him with a face full of anger. Once the censor spoke, many ministers stood up and reprimanded him. At this moment, King Kuan raised his hand, and the sword of the guard beside him was in his hand. Then he exerted force and stabbed the censor in the chest. This happened too suddenly, and no one expected it. When the censor fell to the ground, the ministers who stood up took a step back in fright. They went forward to check on him, and finally said to Du Guqing, "The censor has stopped breathing." "King Kuan, how dare you kill someone in the hall? You've lost your mind to this extent." Du Guqing stood up angrily and pointed at King Kuan. At this moment, King Kuan put his hands behind his back fearlessly, and looked at Du Guqing viciously. "Your Highness, the winner is the king, and the loser is the bandit. My 100,000 soldiers are already 3 miles away from the capital. As long as I give the order, they can flatten the capital within an hour. Now there are 2 paths in front of you. One is to resign from the position of Crown Prince, and save the people in the capital. The other is for me to flatten the capital and take over your position. You rebellious minister. Do you know that you will make third royal brother unjust by doing this? How can the Shang kingdom accept him gaining power like this?" Du Guqing looked at third royal brother who was at a loss. It seemed like he did not know that things would turn out this way. No, it should be said that he did not know that the plan would change so quickly. King Kuan laughed out loud. "I'll kill God and Buddha. Those who block me will die. Whoever is not convinced can stand up, and I will fulfill their wishes. If anyone wants to stand on this king's side, this king will definitely not treat them unfairly." At this moment, Chu Qingyan was already standing beside Du Guqing. Looking at the ferocious King Kuan below, she felt that her worldview had been refreshed. She had never seen such an arrogant and conceited person who dared to openly challenge the imperial authority. Even if such a person obtained the throne of Shang Kingdom, he would go down in history and infamy. She sneered. "Is that so? Then this prince wants to see who will stand on your side." After King Kuan finished speaking, there were already many officials on his side. Most of them were people who usually argued with Du Guqing in the imperial court. Du Guqing's face darkened. Xiao Su wanted her to take this opportunity to see the true colors of these officials. After this matter was over, they could purge the civil and military officials, keeping the loyal ones and getting rid of the dregs. After a while, the 2 sides began to curse at each other. How can you help the evildoers like this? How can you face the Shang Empire, the Crown Prince, and His Majesty? A fine bird chooses a fine tree to nest in. I feel that following King Kuan will lead to a brighter future. Those who walk different paths cannot work together. The Crown Prince should surrender quickly. Don't implicate the innocent people, said the other. Shameless bastard, shut up. The hall was already in an uproar. The situation was clearly in their favor, but Su Lu looked at the Crown Prince and felt that although the Crown Prince's reaction was angry, he was not flustered. Could it be that he had something to rely on? Or was he scared silly? Du Guqing glanced at Xiao Su. Seeing that he nodded to indicate that she could take action, she raised her hand to signal for everyone to be quiet. Then she ordered, Zhang Kai, why are you still standing there? There are so many traitors. Capture them all. Yes, your humble servant. Zhang Kai immediately called for people to surround them. As expected, a fledgling is not afraid of a tiger. You want to go against us with just this amount of people? You are overestimating yourselves. King Kuan snorted coldly. Then, with a wave of his hand, the guards who followed him rushed into the hall. In the hall, the situation was on the verge of breaking out. Du Guqing looked at the dozens of guards beside him, and could not help but laugh. You dare to come out and make a fuss with just this amount of people? I don't know if Third Imperial Uncle is too confident. After laughing, she lowered her hand and Zhang Kai led people forward. Su Lu frowned. Lord, didn't our people enter the palace? Why are they so quiet now? King Kuan was also confused. However, he could not show weakness now. He knew how to stabilize the morale of the army. Therefore he shouted, "Everyone here, as long as anyone can hurt the crown prince, he will be promoted. As long as he can get the crown prince's head, he will be promoted to a first-rank official." With such a great reward, there would definitely be brave men. The guards beside him all rushed towards Duguqing. These people were the best of the best under King Kuan. They were not comparable to ordinary palace guards. At this moment, King Kuan looked at the man in black beside him. Seeing that he was indifferent, King Kuan was a little annoyed. "Didn't you bring people here? Why don't you help me kill the crown prince?" The man in black revealed a mocking smile. "Your plan has been exposed. There's no need for us to cooperate anymore. My target has always been one person." After speaking, the man in black did not care about King Kuan's ugly expression. He led his people and walked quickly toward Xiao. Their target had always been the King of England, Xiao. They had only used King Kuan's power to let them enter the palace. This King Kuan was still too naive and stupid. At this moment, Chu Qingyan was fighting with the guards who were attacking Duguqing. She had just stopped 2 or 3 people when she saw people who were different from King Kuan's men charging towards Big Ice Cube. Her expression changed slightly. Big Ice Cube Xiao cavalry had been sent to restrain King Kuan's army. Now there was no one else besides Turin. At this moment, the wine cup in Xiaosu's hand suddenly flew out and exploded in midair. The shards flew and slashed across the necks of a few people. One move took the lives of at least 3 people. Seeing this, Chu Qingyan heaved a sigh of relief. Then she thought about it. Who was the Big Ice Cube? His martial arts were exceptional, and these people would not be a problem for him. She continued to focus on blocking the guards who were attacking Duguqing. She did not know if it was because King Kuan was too tempting, but these people attacked without any regard for their lives. Chu Qingyan could not take care of so many people. She was careless and someone went past her and went towards Duguqing. Duguqing's martial arts were not weak either. She lifted her leg and kicked towards the guard. But at this moment, a palace maid standing beside her suddenly took out a dagger from her sleeve and stabbed it towards Duguqing's chest. No. Chapter 554. No one expected that King Kuan's men would disguise themselves as palace maids and lie in ambush, then suddenly attack at this moment. In the blink of an eye, a white figure flew up and landed in front of Duguqing. Ugh! With a pu sound, the sharp tip of the knife pierced into his chest from his back. Blood immediately gushed out and instantly dyed his white clothes red. Young Master Yi. Lingfeng. Big brother Lingfeng. Duguqing cried out involuntarily as she looked at the back of the man who was standing in front of her like a stone statue, firm and indestructible. "I'm fine." He looked at Duguqing and curled his lips, but when he finished speaking, he coughed up a mouthful of blood. Just as the palace maid was about to pull out her blade to stab Chu Qingyan finished her off with a single strike. Yi Lingfeng couldn't stand properly and fell towards Duguqing. Duguqing subconsciously stretched out her hands to catch him, and the 2 of them fell to the ground. Duguqing held on to him, and when she saw that her hands were covered in blood, she immediately said anxiously, "Someone call the imperial physician, the imperial physician." Yi Lingfeng looked at her panicked expression and a gratified smile appeared in his eyes. "Little Qing, I thought you didn't want to call my name and talk to me anymore. What nonsense are you saying at this time? Don't talk anymore. Save your energy and talk when you're better." Duguqing saw him spitting out mouthfuls of blood the moment he opened his mouth. She was so frightened that she didn't know what to do. "No, I'm afraid that if I don't say it now, I won't have another chance to say it in the future." Yi Lingfeng shook his head. His voice was very weak, as if he would stop breathing the next moment. Duguqing's tears fell immediately. "Big brother Lingfeng, I beg you, don't say it anymore. You're the only son of the Yi family in 3 generations. If you leave just like that, what will happen to the Yi family? Also, what will happen to me?" Yi Lingfeng held her hand and smiled reluctantly. "It's all right. My father is still young and can have another child with my mother. What nonsense are you saying? It's not funny at all." Duguqing cried uncontrollably. Who would have thought that the person who was smiling at her just now would be lying in her arms in the blink of an eye, barely breathing? Xiao, I'm sorry. I made you sad before, and I'm still like this now. It can be seen that I'm really not a good person. When Yi Lingfeng said this, he couldn't help but cough a few times. He didn't care about wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth. He raised his other hand and struggled to wipe the tears from the corner of her eyes. Unfortunately, the tears were like a broken string of beads. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't wipe them all away. Xiao, if I say that I regret it, will you give me another chance? He looked into her eyes and smiled. Yi Lingfeng, what right do you have to say that you don't want it? Was it because I was too shameless in the past that you thought I would always wait for you? Du Guqing looked at him, sobbing uncontrollably. After spending half a year together, and chasing after each other for 3 months, all of her obsessions had been destroyed and all of her love had been abandoned. She had thought that it was impossible between them. Who would have thought that at this moment, lying in her arms with his life hanging by a thread, he would give her hope and tell her that he regretted it? What right do you have? When you were healthy and safe, you didn't tell me. What right do you have? When my life was hanging by a thread, you came to take the knife. You hurt me so deeply. What right do you have to die for me? Hearing this, Yi Lingfeng's eyes darkened. He mocked himself. That's right, I was too confident. If it was anyone else, they would have already stabbed me. I'm so cold-blooded, heartless and fickle in love. How could the heavens let me live a carefree life, and then let me happily meet someone I like and spend the rest of my life with her? Xiao, I'm sorry. I've let you down in the end. He slowly retracted his hand. What right did he have now? Suddenly his hand was held. Yi Lingfeng's eyes widened. Those peach blossom eyes were filled with astonishment. Du Guqing raised her eyes and looked at him angrily. You bastard. When I shamelessly chased after you, I was rejected by you more than once. I didn't even say anything about giving up. But you've only been rejected by me once and you're already disheartened. As a man, how can your skin be so thin? You're even worse than a woman. Xiao. His peach blossom eyes were filled with pleasant surprise. You mustn't die, alright? I still want to reject you a few more times to get back the face I've lost, so you have to live well, alright? Du Guqing's tears fell down once again. Why hasn't the imperial physician come yet? Du Guqing looked around and still did not see the imperial physician's figure. Her eyes were suddenly filled with despair. Her hand was tightly held and Du Guqing looked down at him. Xiao, I'm really sorry. He coughed out a mouthful of blood and his eyes were filled with endless sorrow. I shouldn't have done this to you. Just pretend I didn't say anything. I was willing to save you, so don't be sad and blame yourself. Just treat it as me repaying all the disappointment I've given you. Yi Lingfeng's voice became a bit erratic. These words were like knives stabbing into Du Guqing's heart. Imperial father is gone. Little brother is still struggling on the edge of life and death. Imperial mother is heartbroken. At this time, how can you bear to abandon me? Du Guqing's eyes were filled with tears. She tightly held his hand, not daring to let go for a moment. Happiness was clearly at her fingertips, but she was always one step away. If she had bravely taken that step, would the two of them not have this kind of ending? Yi Lingfeng looked at Du Guqing in front of him and thought of the scene when the two of them first met. When I first saw you on the street, I thought in my heart, how could there be such a girl, as cute as a flower? Du Guqing looked into his eyes. That little bit of light slowly dimmed, and her heart felt like thousands of knives were stabbing into it. Lingfeng, you're not allowed to leave, you're not allowed to leave. Xiao, live like a flower. Be happy and live bravely. I'm sorry, like a gust of wind sweeping across your lake, but in the end, I can't stop. If possible, I want to take care of you for a lifetime and be rejected by you again and again, so you can get back the face you've lost. If possible, I want to hug you. After so many years, you're the first girl to make my heart ache. I think you'll also be the last one in my life. There are no ifs, please take good care of yourself. In your next life, don't meet a man like me again. That pair of peach blossom eyes slowly closed. In March, the peach blossoms bloom. And in April, the fragrance is gone. Next year, the branches will grow, and the flowers will bloom again the next month. In the unseen world, reincarnation will turn. Du Guqing hugged Yi Lingfeng, crying her heart out. Chu Qingyan stood to the side, silently glancing over, her eyes filled with sorrow. The saddest thing in the world was to be separated by love. Chapter 555. Turan and King Kuan were fighting. King Kuan was beaten back by Turan, and most of his men were already subdued. However, there was a man beside King Kuan who was extremely skilled in martial arts. Xiao Su fought with him, and because the two of them were extremely lethal, Xiao Su lured him out of the hall. After Chu Qingyan dealt with the man in front of her, she went out of the hall with her sword to help Big Ice Cube. As the other party had many men, even if Big Ice Cube's martial arts were unparalleled, she was afraid that he would not be able to fight against so many people. Unfortunately, Chu Qingyan underestimated Big Ice Cube's strength. He lured them out just to make it easier to interrogate them. When she went out, she saw Big Ice Cube pointing his sword at the leader's throat and asking coldly, "Who sent you?" "I have no comment." That person looked at Xiao Su with a touch of defeat in his eyes. If not for this person's meticulous mind that foiled his and King Kuan's plan, the entire Shang Kingdom's palace would be in their hands, and Xiao Su would be a dead soul under his sword. Unfortunately, he had become his prisoner. "If that's the case, do it yourself." Xiao Su threw the sword in his hand in front of him. "You." That person looked at Xiao Su in shock, then revealed a smile. "It's my honor to be able to fight with you. It's my pity that I didn't get to see you fight with my master." After he finished speaking, he took his sword and committed suicide. "Big Ice Cube, why don't you let him live?" and asked the person behind him. Chu Qingyan kept her sword and walked over to ask him. He was trained by the royal family. "It doesn't make a difference whether I ask him or not," Xiao Su replied indifferently. Chu Qingyan was slightly stunned. "Someone from the royal family? Is it him? His imperial father, that cruel father who killed his son?" "I don't know." Xiao Su lowered his eyes. He couldn't be sure, and he wouldn't probe further. Chu Qingyan's heart ached. Even if it wasn't the Sichuan emperor, it was still a member of the royal family. The truth was cruel, so it was better not to know, right? Suddenly, Xiao Su led Chu Qingyan in a different direction. He drew his flexible sword from his waist and faced the people descending from the sky. Moon Palace sect. Chu Qingyan was brought to the back of the Big Ice Cube. As soon as she stood still, Tai Tu saw people in white flying down from the sky. In the middle, a woman stepped on a white dress and landed. In the cold winter night scene, he saw petals dancing in the sky. The scene was very familiar. Weren't they the people who said something about the suicide squad in the Sichuan? I didn't think that after 3 months, His Royal Highness would still remember me. The woman in the lead landed. Her snow-colored flower-painted cloak was wrapped around the back of her hand. Her fingertips rested on it, and she didn't hide her charm at all. Everyone in Jianghu wanted to kill absolute killer Mei Ji. She was the Moon Palace sect's suicide squad protector, and the snow-robed woman who stopped the Big Ice Cube. This king only remembers your symbol. Xiao Su looked at the weapons in their hands. They all had the word moon on them. Absolute killer Mei Ji's expression turned ugly. It seemed that she was thinking too much. The Big Ice Cube's poisonous tongue was always on display in front of the enemy. The moment he opened his mouth, he killed the enemy's arrogance. Chu Qingyan was very satisfied. I definitely won't let you leave alive today." Absolute killer Mei Ji gave the order, and the people behind her raised their swords and moved towards them. If these people in front of them weren't here to assassinate them, Chu Qingyan would feel that the fluttering white clothes and long hair in front of her, and if there was a bit of white fog, it would be like a gathering at the Jade Lake. Unfortunately, these people were all cold and emotionless. Every one of them was a killing move. Xiao Su didn't even frown. He directly swung the long sword in his hand. The sharp edge of the sword met the attack head-on. Chu Qingyan wasn't willing to be outdone. She also tangled with these people from the Moon Palace sect. He didn't know if it was because the detoxifying herbs this time had the effect of increasing his power, but Xiao Su found that every time he attacked tonight, the power was a bit stronger than before. Although the people from the Moon Palace sect had all been trained to be strong, in Xiao Su's eyes, they were like moths to a flame. One by one they were sent flying. Absolute Killer Meiji was originally very pleased with herself. This time there was only one weak woman by Xiao Su's side, Chu Qingyan. She didn't expect that this weak woman wasn't weak at all. Not only did she injure several of her trusted subordinates, but she also injured Xiao Su's side. She had lost more than half of her people. It wasn't that her people were idiots, but this person was really too strong. Absolute Killer Meiji couldn't help but pinch the silk cloth in her hand and fly toward Xiao Su. While he was dealing with the people in front of him, she attacked his back. Xiao Su seemed to have eyes on the back of his head. He finished off the people in front of him with a single sword. Then he turned around and hit her with a palm. She had used all of her power, but she couldn't match half of his power. Absolute Killer Meiji felt that the moment the two of them collided, the meridians in her body suddenly broke. She couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Her whole body fell heavily to the ground. Xiao Su didn't hesitate. The sword in his hand went straight towards her. Absolute Killer Meiji's eyes widened. She didn't expect that she would die here today. But at this time, a leaf flew towards Xiao Su. Xiao Su recognized the hidden weapon in the air. He retracted the sword in his hand and blocked it in front of him. That leaf hit his sword. After the force was removed, it fell to the ground. Chu Qingyan had already returned to Xiao Su's side. She frowned as she looked in the direction the leaf came from. Who was it this time? She saw a dark purple figure flying in the air. He somersaulted in the air and landed in front of Absolute Killer Meiji. A purple veil covered his face, revealing a pair of flirtatious phoenix eyes. His expression was as cold as a knife. His body was shining and there seemed to be a glazed light flowing in his eyes. Chu Qingyan suddenly recalled that this man was the one who had barged into her room and kidnapped her. Wasn't he the one who had left a jade tablet in her room? Wait, that's not right. Why did this person give her a familiar feeling? Had she seen him somewhere before? Young master. Absolute Killer Meiji's face showed a touch of joy. Protector Meiji has suffered. The languid voice was charming. After that person answered, he was slightly stunned. Oh no, he forgot to change his voice. Chu Qingyan's eyes widened. This voice? Higashio Motetsu? Higashio Motetsu couldn't help but look at Chu Qingyan. Seeing her looking at him with a face full of shock, his eyes showed a touch of frustration. He was still discovered. He reached out and took off the purple veil on his face. Then he smiled. His smile was a bit bitter. Little girl, we meet again. You're the Moon Palace sect's young master? Chu Qingyan's mind was filled with the way Absolute Killer Meiji addressed him. Something seemed to be broken in the depths of her eyes. I didn't expect to be exposed so quickly. Little girl, let me introduce myself again. I am Higashio Motetsu, the current young master of the Moon Palace sect. Higashio Motetsu raised his hand and waved at her. Since it had already come to this point, then he might as well be frank. Chapter 556. The person in front of her was a peerless beauty with an enchanting smile. It should have been a pleasing scene, but in Chu Qingyan's eyes, it was a deep thorn in her side. You told me before that you are not a member of the Moon Palace, and that your father has long since retired. It's fake. You said you are not the young master of the Moon Palace. In order to not make you suspicious, you said you approached me without a motive. I lied to you. Higashio Motetsu hesitated for a moment, then finally sighed and replied. In the beginning it was close, but then it wasn't, and finally, with one question and one answer, the entire garden fell silent. Although Xiao Su had never seen Dongting Wangyu before, he had only heard the conversation between him and the little fellow. He had more or less guessed the identity of this person, as well as their past. The little fellow knew someone, but he did not know. It was a terrible feeling. But seeing the little fellow's grief and indignation at this time, he could not help but put away his displeasure first. He sheathed his sword and walked to her side. He stood by her side and supported her with a full stance, silently telling her that no matter how many wolves, tigers, and leopards there were in this world, he would never leave her. Chu Qingyan closed her eyes, then opened them. The desolation in her eyes had disappeared, replaced by a cold alienation. All right, I have nothing else to say. Thank you, young master of the Moon Palace, for your answer. Chu Qingyan's tone did not carry any emotion, but a faint self-deprecating smile hung at the corner of her mouth. Higashio Motetsu felt that a chasm had suddenly been drawn between the two of them, and then gradually drifted apart. A touch of sorrow flashed through his phoenix eyes. Little girl, why didn't you continue asking? I did not give the order of death, and I did not intend to kill Xiao. I approached you with a motive, but that does not mean I want to hurt you. But why didn't you continue asking? Because we were on different sides. Did you have to draw your swords against him? He saw her draw her sword and pointed at him, without any hesitation in her eyes. His heart suddenly felt like it was being squeezed. Xiao stood by her side, and could feel the sorrow emanating from her. The feeling of being betrayed must be very uncomfortable. Now for him, you have to draw your sword against a friend of the past. This is too difficult for you. Xiao raised his hand to hold her hand, then pulled her behind him, then looked at Higashio Motetsu with a serious expression. Young master of the Moon Palace, what advice do you have for me? Higashio Motetsu. He looked at Xiao then smiled and said, Xiao, sword. Xiao sheathed his sword and looked at him. I'd like to hear the details. The Moon Palace has issued a kill order. Once it is issued, it will not stop until one of us is dead. I can take back the order, but I hope that your highness can show some sincerity. Higashio Motetsu smiled, and his charm was unparalleled. Young master, you can't take back the order. The Moon Palace has never had such a precedent. Meiji immediately tried to stop him when she heard this. You dare to refute my words? Higashio Motetsu raised his eyes and his gaze was cold. Meiji immediately fell silent. This young master always had a smile on his face, but no one in the sect dared to disobey him. Chu Qingyan listened to him and lowered her head. As expected, he had a motive. Xiao glanced at the person beside him and felt her depressed mood. He thought for a moment then said, What do you want? The Heart Moon Protection Mantra. Higashio Motetsu looked at him and said word by word. Xiao frowned slightly and searched for these words in his memory. Later, he remembered that he had accidentally obtained a manual in Jiangnan. It was a pity that it was not the same as his martial arts, but because it was a gift from an old friend, he kept it. All right, but that item is not with me, Xiao replied calmly. Higashio Motetsu smiled. There's no rush. As long as the deal is done, you can take it whenever you want. I believe in your highness's integrity. All right. Xiao nodded. After almost a year of searching, this time it was finally complete. Higashio Motetsu's heart was filled with joy, but when his gaze fell on the red figure, the joy in his heart faded. Little girl, I didn't think that the most innocent person would be hurt in the end. Higashio Motetsu looked away and said, I will give you the address in the future. I will wait for your highness good news. With that, he waved his hand and left with his disciples. Her white muslin dress fluttered in the air, just as elegant as it had been before they came. Xiao turned and looked at the person with her head lowered. Qingyan, you owe me an explanation. Chu Qingyan stilled slightly and recovered from her sadness. She raised her head to look at the person in front of her. She knew that when the big ice cube asked her in such a serious tone, it meant that he was angry. She pursed her lips and told him about her encounter with Higashio Motetsu and what happened next, including how she recognized him as the man in black who had snuck into the palace. Xiao listened to her slowly talk about these things and his heart was complicated. So the little fellow had hidden so many things from him. But thinking about it, the little fellow was not his pet, and should have the right to make friends independently. It was just that he felt uncomfortable. But he could see that she was sad because she had been betrayed by her good friend. He felt that from what she said, Higashio Motetsu had many opportunities to attack her, but he did not. Instead, he helped her many times, so he should not have any bad intentions towards her. But he felt that there was no need to tell her this. He put a hand on her head and said softly, It's okay. We can make more friends. It's fine as long as we are sincere. Chu Qingyan thought that he would scold her for hiding so many things from him. If she had told him earlier, then Higashio Motetsu's identity would have been exposed and the Moon Palace would not have tried to assassinate them again and again. But she asked herself, if she knew that Higashio Motetsu had lied to her, would she have told the Big Ice Cube? She did not know. But the Big Ice Cube's words made her feel much better. Big Ice Cube, I make friends with my heart. I blindfold my eyes and trust someone. But if there comes a day when I'm betrayed or hurt, I'll accept it. But there won't be a second time. She bit her lips and looked disappointed. You learn from your mistakes. Xiao Su stroked her long hair and comforted her. But I still feel sad. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips and her voice was a little hoarse. Then I'll lend you my shoulder. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. He was not good at comforting people. Chu Qingyan chuckled when she heard that. The Big Ice Cube was so cute. She stretched out her hands and tilted her head. Just hug me. Hug me and use your warmth to dispel my coldness. Let me believe that in this world, other than using people, there is also warmth. Xiao Su curled his lips and pulled her into his arms. Chapter 557. Big Ice Cube. Why did you agree to his request? Our valiant cavalry is not afraid of the Moon Palace. Wuxia you, he tried his best to get it. Is it important? Chu Qingyan leaned into his embrace and asked in puzzlement. Xiao Su replied. The heart-protecting moon is a treasure to others, but not to me. Since he wants it, I'll give it to him. It's worth it to exchange a useless book for a relentless pursuit. The valiant cavalry has no interest in fooling around with these people. In fact, he had heard of the heart-protecting moon before. It was rumored to be one of the top 3 martial arts absolute art rankings. If mastered, one's future would be limitless. However, he felt that although this person had ulterior motives, he had helped her along the way. For example, the Blue Manor deal was considered repaying the favor for the little one. Furthermore, although the little one drew her saber against Higashio Motetsu for him, he could tell that the little one did not want to be enemies with Higashio Motetsu. That was why he said that exchanging a cultivation technique for a relentless pursuit was worth it, because he did not want to put the little one in a difficult position. However, there was no need to tell the little one these things. That's good too. Chu Qingyan nodded. She left his embrace and her mood had improved. She looked up at the person in front of her and blinked. Big Ice Cube, you promised to let me see your true face on New Year's Eve. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. Now. Chu Qingyan suddenly recalled that they were still in the Shang Empire's imperial palace. She regretted her words. Then I'll go back later. She did not want too many people to see the Big Ice Cube's true face. Okay. Xiao Su nodded. At that moment, Turin walked over. Master, King Kuan and his men have been captured. We succeeded in luring the enemy. Very good. Let Huoling and the rest return after they are done with those people. Xiao Su instructed. Yes. Turin nodded. By the way, young Master E. Chu Qingyan suddenly remembered and immediately asked. Turin, how is young Master E? Is it true? Turin replied. Young Master E lost too much blood and fainted. However, the injuries on his back are too severe. Ethereal said that he was not confident that he could save him. It all depends on his will. Chu Qingyan heaved a sigh of relief. All right, as long as he's still breathing, there will be a way. She couldn't bear to see a lover end up like a ghost. Xiao Su's expression was grim. No matter the cost, we must make sure he survives. Yes. Turin nods. Yi Lingfeng is one of Master's few good friends. They won't let anything happen to him. It was already late at night. Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su returned to their room. At this moment, Chu Qingyan was holding a bottle of potion in her hand. It was said that once dipped in the potion, it could peel off the human skin mask on Big Ice's face and reveal his true appearance. Chu Qingyan's fingers were trembling. She was both anticipating and afraid. Xiao Su could sense her emotions and couldn't help but find it funny. However, he didn't say anything. Chu Qingyan had already torn off the mask between his brows. She saw the jade-like smooth skin on his forehead, and the sword-like eyebrows that were neither thick nor light. Her fingers paused and continued downward. His long and narrow eyes were slightly closed. His long and curly eyelashes were curled. He was even more beautiful and slender than a woman. Chu Qingyan was jealous. Why was it longer than hers? She couldn't accept it. However, her hand didn't stop. It continued slowly. All the way down, it was a tall nose and thin lips. As she was very close, she could only see part of him. When she took off the human skin mask, she was already stunned. Who was this young master that could cause the downfall of a country? Borrowing the water to bloom, it was strange. The water was the bones, and the jade was the flesh. She remembered that when she had lost to Big Ice, he had hidden his snow-white skin under his luxurious clothes. However, she didn't expect that at this moment, when he took off his mask, the skin on his cheeks would give people the same feeling. Handsome eyebrows and slender eyes. He looked around. His eyes were like black jade, filled with a river of stars. The specks of light were even more resplendent under the candlelight. The spring breeze melted his eyebrows. His lips seemed to be stained with the morning dew, flickering with light. Exquisite eyebrows and eyes. His nose was like a hanging beam. His lips were like a painted pill. Every part of him was very outstanding. When his facial features were put together, it became a handsome painting. Accumulated stones were like jade. Arranged pine trees were like green. His beauty was unparalleled in this world. This was simply an upgraded version of the mask she had seen in the inn. She had some suspicions. Back then, Big Ice didn't wear a mask at all. It was just that his facial features weren't outstanding. However, his facial features were already enough to turn all living things upside down. Now that he didn't hide it, people couldn't help but admire him. Dressed in black, he stood there casually, but he was already more beautiful than the world's most beautiful flowers and pearls. Xiao Su looked at her mouth that was wide enough to hold an egg. He couldn't help but smile. Scared stiff. His smile was like the sun that suddenly rose on a snowy mountain peak. A layer of golden light shrouded the snow, reflecting dazzling light. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but answer. "You're stunning." After blurting it out, she realized what she had said and couldn't help but blush. Xiao Su couldn't help but smile when he heard this. The little fellow's reaction was quite interesting. Perhaps she was already used to his appearance, or perhaps she didn't care much about it. Xiao Su didn't pay much attention to his own appearance. However, seeing the little fellow's reaction, he was quite satisfied with his own appearance. However, as a man, appearance was not very important. Strength was what mattered the most. He could rely on his own strength to gain a foothold in the world. Whether his appearance was good or bad, it was just a bonus. He stretched out his hand and waved it in front of her. "It's time to come back to reality." Suddenly, his hand was hugged by her. When he raised his eyebrows in confusion, he heard her mutter to herself. "So my big ice block is a tall, rich and handsome man. I've hugged a thigh." Xiao Su smiled when he heard this. "Big ice block, it's a good thing you covered your appearance. Otherwise, you would have been knocked out by fruits when you went out." In ancient times, there was a phenomenon. If a man was very outstanding, people would throw fruits at them to express their admiration and pursuit. Chu Qingyan thought of this scene, and was a little shocked. "You think that people would dare to throw things at me?" Xiao Su hooked his lips. Chu Qingyan thought of how this person was cold and unapproachable in front of outsiders. Perhaps those people only dared to look at him from afar, and didn't dare to touch him. However, in the future, Big Ice Cube, your appearance will attract too much attention. You'd better cover yourself up. Chu Qingyan shook his arm and said righteously. Who knew that she had her own selfish motives and didn't want others to see the big ice block's appearance. Xiao Su had never cared about his appearance. He agreed without hesitation. It was very late at night. After Xiao Su sent the little fellow out, he couldn't help but laugh and was about to close the door when he saw someone who surprised him. Mr. Ruo. Chapter 558. Mr. Ruo was Xiao Su's most outstanding strategist. When he returned to the court after defeating the enemy, Mr. Ruo did not follow him and stayed at the border. But he did not expect to see him at this time. At this time, his clothes were covered in mud. It could be seen that he had traveled a long distance without stopping. His face was also filled with fatigue. Hualing and Turan saw their master's appearance and understood. Master had confessed his true appearance to the little princess. It seemed like the position of the little princess in Master's heart was becoming higher and higher. Xiao Su moved aside to let them in. Hualing and Turan, who followed behind Mr. Rua, also came in. Xiao Su first poured a cup of hot tea for Mr. Rua to let him catch his breath. Then he turned to Turan and Hualing. At this time, Hualing presented an urgent secret report. It came from the Sichuan Imperial Palace. When Xiao Su saw the handwriting on it, he knew who had sent it. He hesitated for a moment before finally opening it. After quickly skimming through it, Xiao Su's face suddenly froze. In order to make him return to the Sichuan, Muhu was actually using death. The letter said that Fu Huang was planning to use his disappearance for several months to make Xiao Ran the crown prince. As long as he appeared in the Sichuan, then his Fu Huang's plan would be dispelled. So if he dared to abandon his identity as the Sichuan eldest prince, abandon the Liang family, abandon everything and leave, then she would die in Zhaoyang Palace for him to see. Other than using filial piety to threaten him, what else could Muhu do? The change in Xiao Su's expression did not escape everyone's eyes. They felt the entire room become cold. He closed his eyes, and the layer of sadness in his eyes was put away. Mr. Rua, why have you come to find Ben Wang this time? He was always gentle and polite to this strategist. Mr. Rua and Xiao Su bowed to him before stating the reason for their visit. Lord, after you went missing in Sichuan, this one was very worried. I brought people to the border to look for you, but halfway through, I received news from Shaolai Cavalry that you were fine. I planned to return to the border, but I didn't expect to receive another message from Water Spirit. Traces of a mine were found in the Fuli mountain range. Perhaps there really is a mine hidden there, but this one felt that the most important thing for you at that time was to find the antidote. So I had Water Spirit put this message aside for the time being. Sir Rua continued. But not long ago, this humble one received news of your assassination attempt. These people were not only from the imperial court, but also from the Jianghu. This humble one was reminded of this matter again, which is why I came to find you. This humble one knows that you have no intention of vying for the throne, but I'm worried that one day, even if the tiger is harmless to the human heart, the person will have the intention to kill the tiger. Xiao Su frowned. If Mr. Rua has something to say, please say it. Mr. Rua nodded and said solemnly, Lord, although this humble one knows that you have decided to live in seclusion in the imperial court and no longer interfere in Sichuan's political affairs, this humble one is worried that those who have been your enemies in the past will not let you go, including the current emperor. Back then, the emperor used a scheme to lure you away from the capital, but he didn't expect you to survive. Now that the Fuli mountain range really does have traces of a mine, this humble one thinks that Lord can ask to return to the Fuli mountain range. On the surface, you appear to be an idle lord in charge of searching for a mine in the Fuli mountain range. You can appear openly in front of everyone, and those people won't dare to assassinate you so brazenly. At the same time, it will lower His Majesty's guard against you. Xiao Su understood what he meant and couldn't help but frown in deep thought. Mr. Rua was afraid that he wouldn't agree and immediately said, Your Highness, you don't have the intention to participate in the struggle for power, but you must have the ability to protect yourself. No one knows if His Majesty will make a move against you one day. Since he gave the Fuli mountain range to you, but he doesn't know that there are mines inside, we can push the boat with the current and take the mines for our own use. If there is a day when we become enemies, His Majesty won't dare to make a move against you so easily. Turan and Hualing looked at each other. They didn't think that things would develop to this point. They immediately looked at their master, not knowing what decision he would make. Allow this prince to consider. Xiao Su stood up with his back to everyone and said lightly. No one knew that the person with his back to them slowly clenched his hands in his sleeves and revealed a bitter expression. Mr. Rua still wanted to say something, but seeing that Lord had already expressed his refusal to talk, he sighed and left with Turan and Hualing. Xiao Su didn't know how long he had been standing there, but he felt that there was an extra person behind him. Big Ice Cube, why are you here? Xiao Su turned around and saw that she was wearing loose casual clothes. He guessed that she had already fallen asleep, so he stood up again. He walked forward and picked up the cloak on the back of the chair, wrapping it tightly around her before sitting down on a chair to the side. I heard about what happened tonight from Huiling and the others. Are you very troubled? Chu Qingyan asked with concern. Xiaosu admitted. Then he asked, if it was you, what would you do? Chu Qingyan lowered her head to think for a moment when she heard this. Then she looked up with a bright smile. Go to Fuli mountain range and take the mines there into our pockets. Then if anyone dares to harm us in the future, we'll show them and scare them to death. Didn't you want to travel around? This was one of the reasons why he was hesitating. He had promised her that he would no longer participate in politics. Playing is a small matter, getting rich is a big matter. Just sitting around and eating is not a good idea. Also, I want you, Big Ice Cube, to live openly in Sichuan. Chu Qingyan suddenly looked at him with a serious expression. Big Ice Cube, I don't want others to think that you're a coward who hides and doesn't dare to show yourself. Even if they want to harm us, it's fine. If one comes, we'll beat one. If a pair comes, we'll send them flying. I don't believe that those people who use nobility to flaunt themselves would dare to harm others openly. Big Ice Cube, you didn't do anything wrong. It's time for you to take back what belongs to you. This is what Sichuan owes you. Also, we're only doing this to protect ourselves, not to cause internal strife. What's there to worry about? On the other hand, if they dare to touch us in the slightest, we'll use the mines to smash them down. Chu Qingyan said with righteous indignation. Xiaosu looked at her little face, which was red from anger, and his face suddenly brightened. Okay. This was his bottom line. This was his last concession. If they stepped on his bottom line next time, then he wouldn't let them off so easily. After New Year's Eve that year, Sichuan actually started to snow heavily for the first time ever. On the third day of the first lunar month, Sichuan Emperor received a letter from Xiaosu. The letter said that Xiaosu had been missing for a period of time, because he had been seriously injured by an assassin. Now that his health had suddenly deteriorated, he asked to go to Fuli Mountain to look for ores and recuperate at the same time. He wanted to do his last bit of strength for Sichuan. The ministers of the imperial court were moved by the King of England's actions. They expressed that the King of England had made great contributions to the country and the people for so many years. Now that he was seriously injured, he still cared about Sichuan. They all asked Sichuan Emperor to approve his request. The West Xian Emperor, on the other hand, had been moved after reading the last paragraph of his eldest son's letter. I admitted that he wasn't capable enough to take on such a big responsibility, so he took the initiative to give up the right to inherit the throne. He now needed time to wait for Ranner to grow up, so Suer's letter came at the right time. After Ranner grew up, he would eradicate those who were not conducive to Ranner's consolidation of imperial power one by one. After all, one mountain couldn't accommodate two tigers. After Sichuan Emperor agreed, Xiaosu led Xiaolai cavalry and the others to Fuli Mountain. In the blink of an eye, 4 years had passed. In 4 years, how did those people grow up? That ink-eyed youth, that 10-year-old girl, how many years of youth did they experience? Fighting for imperial power, scheming and deceitful. Can you and I stay together forever? After thousands of dangers, the phoenix is reborn. I'll play a song for you. Chapter 559. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, 4 years had passed. What had happened in these 4 years? Rumor had it that an organization had appeared among the people. A year ago, they had ordered their subordinates to collect information on all the handsome men and beautiful women in the world and create a ranking system. Thus, a ranking list of the 8 most handsome men was created, and the ranking was not in order. Prince Xiao Ran of West Xian was only 16 years old. He was handsome and elegant, and people called him Flawless White Jade. The southern Blue Crown Prince, Pang Huang, was only 20 years old. He was handsome and confident, and was known as the Dragon in the Clouds. Enlightened monk Su Jian, 20 years old, secluded in the valley. Spiritual Lotus Seed. Moon Palace's young master Higashio Motetsu, 20 years old, elegant and devilish. Jade Swallow. Sichuan Prince Lin Fingyi, 21 years old, handsome and beautiful. Jade Swallow. Famous and noble Ouyang-ju, 23 years old, elegant and confident. Jade Swallow. There was also a handsome young man, 15 years old, named Chu Yen, known as the Thousand-Faced Red Fox. Every time he appeared, he only liked to dress in red. He was also good at sophistry, and his whereabouts were uncertain. No one had heard of this person before, but in the past 2 years, he had suddenly risen among the people. Not many people had seen him in person, but those who had seen him could not help but be mesmerized by his beauty. The 8 most handsome men were either of noble status, wealthy families, or elegant characters. But in short, they all had one thing in common, and that was that they were all unmarried. Even if Prince of Nansong Peng Huang had a concubine, in the eyes of the unmarried ladies, he was still a bachelor. The people on the ranking list could all be called golden bachelors. But because of their special status, very few people could see these handsome men on the ranking list. Thus, fantasizing became something that many women had to do every day. If I can meet Jade Swallow, I will definitely tell him about my feelings of longing. A girl in pink held her chin with both hands, showing a love-struck expression. Sigh, I would like to see Cloud Dragon first. I heard that he is brave and good at fighting. He is a very brave and handsome man. The girl in blue beside the girl in pink also had a love-struck expression. If I was 1 year younger, I would want to marry the Thousand-Faced Red Fox. I heard that his martial arts are outstanding, his appearance is devastatingly beautiful, and he treats people gently. If I could marry him, I would die without regrets. Another girl at the same table shook her head and sighed. At this time, in the corner of the restaurant, a 14 or 15-year-old girl covered her mouth and teased a young man wearing a gauze hat beside her. Young master, someone is confessing to you again. You really like both young and old. The fingers of the youth who was drinking tea paused. He tilted his head and glanced at his personal maidservant. His voice carried a trace of languid freshness and blurriness. I found that after coming out, your mouth has become much sweeter. It's all thanks to young master's guidance. Maybe when we come out to play more in the future, I will be better at talking. The girl stuck out her tongue at him, and took the opportunity to say. The youth shook his head with a smile and said to the swordsman in front of him, who was also 14 or 15-year-old. Jin Xian, have you noticed that Xining is getting more and more thick-skinned? I think so too. 4 years later, Jin Xian had gotten rid of the naivety of the past. It was as if he had learned to hide his sharpness and not show it. He was like a sword, handsome and handsome. Xining heard this and glared at Jin Xian fiercely, then quarreled with him again. The personal maid was Xining, and the personal guard was Jin Xian. It was not difficult to guess the identity of the youth. Chu Qingyan 4 years ago, Chu Yan 4 years later, and now the well-known Thousand-Faced Red Fox. It was just that no one could connect the two unrelated identities. Chu Qingyan played with the teacup in her hand, ignoring the quarrel between Xining and Jin Xian. She felt a little regretful. The ranking of handsome men was just a claptrap. There were more than a few handsome men in the world. If her big ice cube stood out, he could kill them in a second. However, she would not let the world see the big ice cube's face so easily. She tapped her finger on the table, but to be honest, she knew many of the 7 handsome men on the ranking. She remembered that when she left Sichuan 4 years ago, Xiaoran was only a 12-year-old child. She wondered how he was now. She only knew that under the deliberate training of the Sichuan emperor, he had begun to participate in court politics last year. As the saying goes, a girl changes 18 times between childhood and womanhood. Boys also change when they grow up. She just did not expect that he would become the flawless white jade in the eyes of the people. She really missed the young man who had held her back and refused to let her leave after 4 years of not seeing him. She did not know the Prince of Nansong, but she had heard many stories about him. He was the brave and good war god of Nansong. Chu Qingyan did not think too much about the rest. Anyway, she would not have much interaction with him. However, she did not know that some people had not appeared yet, but it did not mean that they would be absent from your life. In Chu Qingyan's eyes, Su Jian was still a swindler. However, it was also thanks to him that she was able to successfully obtain the ice crystal flower. When they left Jiang country, he also left. He wandered for 3 years and only returned to Sichuan last year. They had not seen each other since they parted ways in Jiang country. Higashio Motetsu was the person Chu Qingyan did not want to mention the most. However, she would hear more or less about him. For example, he had established his own organization in the past 4 years, the Full Moon Sect. However, other than this, there was very little news about him. Chu Qingyan snorted. Perhaps he was concentrating on cultivating his heart-protecting moon technique. Lin Fengyi was another good friend of Big Ice Cube. She heard that he was working in Jiangnan. Chu Qingyan was quite curious about him. However, they had been monitored by the imperial court for the past few years. For safety reasons, they did not move around. If there was a chance, she wanted to go to Jiangnan to take a look. Chu Qingyan did not know much about Ouyangnian. It was only limited to the rumors circulating in the market. Therefore, Chu Qingyan did not delve into it. After drinking a few mouthfuls of tea, she suddenly missed Mao Jian. She had been out for half a day. It was time to go back and eat. At this moment, Jin Xian lowered his head and said, "Master, it will be 5 in an hour. If we do not return, His Highness will punish us." When Chu Qingyan thought about her Big Ice Cube's handsome face and frowned slightly, her heart couldn't help but tremble. She coughed softly and said, "Let's go back." Putting down the silver, she got up. Her movements were as smooth as flowing water. The three of them passed through the tea house and headed for the door. The girls at the table who had been discussing earlier were attracted by the red-clothed youth in the lead. He liked to wear red clothes, covered his face with a veil, and had a male and female bodyguard and servant girl by his side. He was tall and had a noble temperament. Wasn't this the description of the thousand-faced red fox? The girls were somewhat uncertain. However, a gust of wind blew and inadvertently lifted the white veil, revealing an exquisite and handsome side profile. Everyone could not help but stare blankly. When they came back to their senses, the three of them had already walked far away. "What a handsome youth!" someone exclaimed. In March, the peach blossoms bloomed. In April, the fragrance faded. Next year, the branches sprouted. In the following month, the flowers bloomed again. In the unseen world, reincarnation turned. Everything began again. Chapter 560. For years ago, Xiao submitted a memorial saying that he was willing to stay in the Fuli mountain range to search for mineral resources and recuperate at the same time. The Sichuan emperor was very satisfied with this move, because it would give Xiao Ran enough time to grow. It could also block the opinions of the party that supported Xiao. However, in order to make the Sichuan emperor feel that he was treating Xiao too coldly, he waved his hand and gave the barren hills and towns within 100 li of the Fuli mountain range to Xiao as his fief. Because those places were either deserted forests or farmlands that didn't have much of a harvest, it looked like a large area, but in reality, there was no tax to be collected. It could be said that it was of little value. However, how could he refuse an emperor's reward? Xiao accepted it without a word of complaint. Because this place was too desolate, the Sichuan emperor was very kind and didn't collect taxes from them. However, sometimes, a grain of sand that people didn't care about could become a pearl one day. Chu Qingyan brought Xining and Jin Xian back to Lianqing. At this time, Lianqing was no longer as desolate as it had been in the past. Now vendors and small bosses were shouting on both sides of the street. The people coming and going were all people rushing home to cook and eat. There was an endless stream of horses and carriages, and wine flags fluttered in the wind. It was a lively scene. Perhaps it wasn't as prosperous as the capital, but to be able to achieve such results in such a remote place was already shocking enough. After 4 years, one had to have a whole new level of respect for them. However, all of this was due to Xiaosu's support. In the past, this place was still in ruins. Although the people weren't as bad as not having enough clothes to cover their bodies and food, it was normal for them to not know their next meal. Chu Qingyan stepped on the road back to the residence, and saw that the commoners were living and working peacefully. She thought back to the time when they first arrived at this place, and how the commoners were afraid of them and ostracized them. Every time she saw such a peaceful life, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Her family's Big Ice Cube was awesome. He could bring peace to the country through martial arts, and he could govern the country through literature. Look at how well he governed this place. She liked to walk back instead of riding a carriage because she liked to hear the praises of her family's big ice block, and Xiao Lai ride from the people on the streets. It gave her a feeling of glory. In the past few years, she had also helped Big Ice Cube deal with these towns and barren mountains. Many times, she would pass on modern ideas to him. Big Ice Cube was too smart. Every time, he would be able to draw inferences from her words and apply them practically. But it had to be said that sometimes, the collision of ancient and modern ideas could really create sparks. The King of England's residence. These 3 words suddenly appeared in front of her. There was a similar plaque in the capital. However, the words capital didn't seem to give off much of a feeling. However, the words in front of him gave off the feeling of a family's warmth. He didn't know if it was because his mentality had changed that he had such thoughts. There were 4 bodyguards standing guard outside the mansion. When they saw Chu Qingyan return, they bowed and saluted. Chu Qingyan was just about to step into the gate when she heard shouts coming from inside. The woman I introduced to Lord is a great beauty called Water Spirit. Why are you getting involved with me? A rough voice sounded. Oh, what's the use of looking like Water Spirit? Is she knowledgeable? Is she good at zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting? Do you know how to solve flowers and share the prince's worries? Another sharp voice, Chu Yan squeezed. Old woman Su, are you looking for trouble with this old woman? Old woman Li, are you done yet? 2 gorgeously dressed matchmakers in their 30s or 40s walked out while cursing. However, they bumped into Chu Qingyan's group of 3. Old woman Su and old woman Li were people who relied on their eyesight to make a living. When they saw the young master in the lead, they saw that he was wearing a red robe with tight stitches. They could see that it was a famous Su embroidery of the highest quality. Although his face couldn't be seen due to the gauze hat on his head, some people's temperament was enough to make people fall head over heels for him. And the red-clothed youth in front of them already made the eyes of the 2 old women shine. Their occupational habits immediately flared up. This young master, may I ask your name and age? Where do you live? Have you ever married? Are your parents still alive? What business does your family have? The 2 had been quarreling fiercely just now, but the words they asked now were surprisingly tacit. After they finished speaking, the 2 glared at each other and whispered that she had seen this young master first. When the 2 finished speaking, the guards on both sides couldn't help but snicker. These 2 really had eyes but couldn't see gold and jade. The person in front of them was the mistress of their Wang Fu, their lord's most precious little Wang Fei. Just now, they had loudly proposed a marriage for the lord in front of her. Now they wanted to propose a marriage for the little Wang Fei. They would probably be tortured to death later. They were waiting for a good show. You want to propose a marriage for His Royal Highness? Chu Qingyan seemed to not have heard their question. She raised an eyebrow slightly and asked in an indifferent tone. When the 2 heard her tone, it seemed that she was familiar with His Royal Highness. They felt that they had a chance of being a matchmaker, so the 2 immediately started talking at once. They talked about how beautiful and virtuous the person they wanted to propose a marriage for His Royal Highness. After the 2 talked for a long time, they found that the person in front of them didn't pay attention to them at all. Their expressions suddenly became a bit embarrassed. What about you 2? You want to propose a marriage for the Lord, but have you asked his Wang Fei? Chu Qingyan's tone was still slow and leisurely. The 2 looked at each other, and then shook their heads. Don't you know that the Wang Fei is in charge of everything in the inner courtyard? Including the selection of concubines and maidservants. So when you see the Wang Fei, you can ask her for instructions. Chu Qingyan finished speaking and leisurely turned, planning to leave. But this young master, the King of England's consort, has never shown her face. Where can we go to find her? The 2 women had received money from the other party and couldn't help but feel anxious. Chu Qingyan curled her lips. This one can't help you. Send the guests out. As soon as he finished speaking, 2 guards stepped forward and grabbed the 2 burly matchmakers and brought them to the door. Ai, this official, who is that young master just now? How old is he? Where does he live? Is he married? Are his parents still alive? What business does his family have? They didn't manage to get the King of England to marry, but the two didn't want to let go of that young master just now. He must be a smart and elegant young master. One of the guards sneered. Open your eyes and take a look. You dare to covet our lord's people? Go, 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 don't come again. Inviting you out this time is already very polite. If you anger our Wang Fei, you can imagine the consequences. The two matchmakers then left with their tails between their legs. Chu Qingyan had just stepped onto the steps of the main courtyard when she saw Hualing. She immediately waved at him and had him come over. She asked in a small voice, "How is His Highness' mood today?" Hualing winked at her. Reporting to the princess, "Dark clouds are gathering. You're on your own." Chu Qingyan's shoulders instantly collapsed. It's over, could she not see the big ice cube? Chapter 561. After hesitating outside for a while, Chu Qingyan felt that it was better to be stabbed than to be stabbed. It would be better to just walk in and be stabbed. Perhaps this matter would be over. When she gathered her courage and stood at the door, her footsteps suddenly stopped. Wait, she still hadn't thought of an excuse. At this moment, a deep voice came out from inside. How long do you want to dawdle? As soon as the voice fell, Chu Qingyan couldn't help rubbing her nose. Then she lifted her foot and walked in. Shi Ning and Jin Xian, who followed behind her, saw their master's usual majestic appearance in front of outsiders, but in front of His Highness, she was as obedient as a kitten. They simply didn't want to admit that she was their master. When Chu Qingyan walked in, she saw a person sitting behind a table with a book in his hand. One hand was resting on the table, and the other hand was holding a book, looking very leisurely. But when that person heard her footsteps, he turned around. Even after looking at him for 4 years, she still didn't get tired of looking at his face. His eyebrows were as calm as a lake. His eyes were as clear as the moonlight. His clothes were embroidered, his face was bright and clear, and his skin was as clear as snow. His natural cold elegance made people unable to help but hold their breaths. They were afraid that their actions would disturb this noble young master, who seemed to have walked out of the immortal fog. She had once inadvertently blurted out a poem to describe him, but he had thrown her a cold face and ignored her for a day. But what she said was the truth. There is a beauty in the north, aloof and independent. A glance could topple a city, a second glance could topple a country. Rather than topple a country or a city, a beauty is hard to find. A beauty wasn't necessarily used to describe a woman. It was a pity that the big ice cube didn't seem to appreciate it. Thinking of this matter, Chu Qingyan shrugged her shoulders. At this time, her attention was already on the big ice cube. She saw him put down the book and slightly knit his brows as he looked at her. At this time, she remembered that she had forgotten to take off her veil. So she raised her hand to untie the string on her chin, and casually took off her veil. The face hidden behind the veil was revealed to the air. When she was 10 years old, she had already begun to show signs of her beauty. Now that 4 years had passed, the baby fat had decreased by a lot. Her cheeks seemed to be lined with the rosy clouds of the morning sun. Her skin was like snow, and the autumn water was like jade. Her fingertips were as white as snow, and her face was covered by a hibiscus. The willows between her brows were even. She was graceful and beautiful, and naturally graceful. Her jet black hair was neatly tied up with a white jade ribbon. Her crimson-red robe made her look like a young man with a jade face, making people want to take pity on her. If one had to use a poem to describe her transformation and growth after 4 years, it would be, "The clouds think of her clothes, the flowers think of her face, the spring breeze brushes the railing, the dew is dense." Time could take away many things, such as the childishness in one's brows and the freshness in one's eyes. But at the same time, many things could be left behind, such as a brighter radiance in her eyes and a more mature charm. "Where did you go today?" Xiao Su looked at her travel-worn clothes, and already had an answer in his heart. Unfortunately, he wanted to hear her answer. "I'm going to Farong Garden for lunch." Chu Qingyan stood upright and said, "Is that so?" Xiao Su dragged out his tone, and then unhurriedly said, "Why didn't Hualing run into you when she went to Farong Garden to buy pastries today?" No way, She was caught so quickly? Chu Qingyan immediately confessed and quickly said, I went to Fu City. Fu City? What did you go to Fu City for? Xiao Su's eyes flashed with a trace of doubt. A few days ago, I was talking to Sir Ruo about the spring floods that might affect the lives of the people on both sides of the river. So I went upstream to take a look. Chu Qingyan replied. Xiao Su relaxed his brows and his expression eased a lot. These days, the little fellow had helped him a lot to look after his fiefdom, but he didn't allow her to leave the estate without his permission. Recently, the court had become turbulent again, and the people who tried to assassinate them before were showing signs of making a comeback. So he didn't want the little fellow to have any accidents when she went out. Then what conclusion did you reach? He would never not listen to the little fellow's opinion just because she was a girl. On the contrary, sometimes the little fellow's opinion was often something they hadn't thought of before. Fu City is upstream, so if the spring floods come, the impact won't be too big. But I'm afraid that the downstream won't be so optimistic. I found that the dams are built very low. If there's a flood all of a sudden, the river will definitely overflow the dams, and then flood the surrounding villages and towns. It will endanger the lives of the people and damage the property. Chu Qingyan seriously told him the situation she had observed. Because Big Ice Cube had been busy with the defense of Lian City recently, he certainly didn't have the extra energy to check the situation in Fu City. So today, when he left the estate to patrol the city, she secretly took Xining and Jean Xian out. If she had reported to Big Ice Cube in advance, he would definitely not have agreed to it. When the time came, he would have to go out himself, and she didn't know how long he would be busy. She was distressed for his health. The little fellow in front of him could be said to have become his right-hand woman. She had helped a lot in rebuilding these cities and towns. At this time, she had also provided a lot of information about the spring floods. Xiao Su's eyes flashed with a touch of appreciation. Then in your opinion, what do you think we should do now? He was now used to asking her, not necessarily because her suggestions were useful, but because he intended to cultivate her. Fortunately, she always lived up to his expectations. Chu Qingyan had thought of a countermeasure on the way back. At this time when Xiao Su asked, she answered fluently. I think we can take 3 measures. The first is to let the people downstream move away. The second is to divert Luo River. A force is huge, and if we block it blindly, it will collapse one day. But if we divert its power, then it won't be able to condense into a huge destructive force. We can also divert it to a wasteland not far downstream. I went to take a look in the afternoon, and found that the wasteland is not lacking in nutrients. On the contrary, its soil is very fertile, but it lacks water. In this way, we can reduce the force of the water flow and water the soil. In the future, we can open up new fields, and the people can use it to plant crops. In the future, there will be other harvests, and we can feed many people. The last measure is that we can increase the height of the dam. No matter how strong the river is in the future, we won't be afraid that it will flood the people's homes and cause losses. Chu Qingyan smiled and told him her plan. She was inspired by Yu the Great's flood control teacher in history class. However, she didn't remember much at that time, and combined it with her own observations and thoughts, she came to a conclusion. Xiao Su looked at the girl in front of him who was smiling at him. He felt a sense of relief, as if he had a daughter who had just grown up. Chapter 562. The person in front of him was all smiles. She was no longer as naive as before. She had only grown stronger and more motivated. In these few years, she had followed him from the most difficult start to the stability they had today. She had never complained to him and had always gritted her teeth and persevered with him. When they had just arrived at Lian City, it was all in ruins. There wasn't even a clean place to rest. Mu Ling had brought people to repair the prince's residence overnight. She hadn't been idle either. Sometimes she would help pass this and that. She didn't even care about the heavy rain. When they were building the city gate, she had also accompanied the guards to the front line. It could be said that she had accompanied him step by step to complete Lian City. It could also be said that she had contributed to every transformation of this 100 miles of land. All right, I will discuss your suggestion with Mr. Ruo. If it can be implemented, I can give the order today. Xiao nodded slightly. The little fellow's suggestion was acceptable. However, they needed more precise arrangements to be able to implement it. Chu Qingyan expressed her understanding. She had only proposed a rough plan. To truly implement it, they still needed manpower and resources. She raised her head, revealing a soft and beautiful neck. The beautiful curve stopped at her collar. Xiao Su's gaze inadvertently swept across this scene. His eyes flashed slightly, and he looked away without leaving a trace. For some reason, as time passed and the little fellow grew, his gaze would always involuntarily stay on her body. In the past, she was like a branch that had just sprouted. Now, she was like a flower bud that was about to bloom. The petals were covered with sparkling dewdrops, dazzling the eyes. Xiao Su felt very comforted. After all, he had put in so much effort to nurture her. She had grown up to be so pleasing to the eye. It was something to be proud of. It gave him a greater sense of achievement than winning so many battles. However, this feeling had unknowingly changed. As for what it had changed into, he couldn't see through it. However, for now he would continue like this. If it reached a point where he had no choice but to change, he would think about it again. On the battlefield, the Raging Flame War God was proficient in Qimendo techniques and could see through the enemy's thoughts. In Chu Qingyan's words, his intelligence was off the charts and his looks were off the charts. However, when it came to matters of the heart, he was like an ignorant youth. He could not understand his own feelings at all. He thought that his feelings for Chu Qingyan were just a form of love and care. However, it had been a long time since that love and care had become that kind of love and care. It was understandable that Xiao Su was slow when it came to relationships. After all, he had never paid attention to the women around him and kept them at arm's length. No woman dared to approach him. Even if there were female subordinates, he would treat them as if they were men. Chu Qingyan was just as slow. She could talk about other people's relationships as if she knew everything, but when it came to herself, it was useless. When you're confused, you're just stuck in the game. Only when you understand your own intentions will you be able to jump out of the puzzle. So between the two of them, there was still a long way to go before they could reach their goal. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she was very happy in her heart. What she admired the most about Big Ice Block was that he never looked at family background when choosing people. Just like her, he never looked down on her because she was a woman and looked down on her. That's right, Big Ice Block. I heard Hualing say that you're planning to build a high bridge over the Baiyang River. Why do you suddenly want to build one? I remember there's a bridge over the Baiyang River. When she had brought Xining and Jean Xian out to play, they had even walked over the arch bridge when they passed by the Baiyang River. Xiao Su nodded, but the expression on his face instantly froze. There is indeed a bridge, but when it rained a few days ago, cracks appeared on the bridge, and there are signs of it collapsing under the bridge. Now it's forbidden to pass through. If a few more days pass, I'm afraid the bridge won't be able to withstand the load, and will collapse. What? Chu Qingyan was a little surprised. Wasn't that bridge built 5 years ago? Why is it collapsing so quickly? As soon as the words came out of her mouth, a few words floated in her mind. Cutting corners. Could it be that the people who built it embezzled public funds and tampered with the materials? Chu Qingyan asked. At this time, Turin walked in with steady steps. After bowing to the two of them, he reported, Master, official Xian has already admitted his guilt. That year, he embezzled the money allocated by the imperial court. When he was building the bridge, the materials he bought were very poor, so the bridge could not last for more than 5 years. Since the evidence is conclusive, put him in prison. The money from the confiscation will be put into Lian City's treasury. Xiao Su immediately ordered without hesitation. Master, I heard that official Xian is the brother-in-law of Prime Minister Fu's son. Turin hesitated for a moment before speaking. At this time, Chu Qingyan was a little surprised. Now that they were in Lian City, it seemed that they were separated from the imperial court. Consort Yu and the others couldn't reach so far and come to Lian City to make an enemy out of them. However, she didn't expect to meet someone from the Fu family here. However, the law was not merciful. If the emperor broke the law, he would be punished the same as the commoners. Even if they had lived peacefully with the Fu family for the past 4 years, they couldn't allow a corrupt official to rule. When Xiao Su heard this, he frowned. This prince doesn't care what his identity is. Since he has committed a crime and landed in this prince's hands, he shouldn't even think about escaping. Turan, do as this prince says. If he dares to resist, there's no need to be polite with him. Chu Qingyan's eyes curved into crescents as she smiled. This kind of big ice cube was the most domineering. He never bowed down because of power. Big ice cube, I'm so tired. I'm going to rest. Chu Qingyan stretched and acted coquettishly. At this time, there was only the two of them left in the study. This soft voice was not like the wind in the past. It was like a cat's paw that scratched at his heart. It was itchy and a little numb. Xiao Su turned to look at the sky outside. It was still early. He looked at her with a cold expression. You left the Fu without permission. Although you were on official business, you still went against my orders. So, you are punished to carry 30 caddies of weight and run 10 laps. You can rest when you finish running. What? 10 laps? Chu Qingyan could already see the stars spinning in front of her. There's no bargaining. Go. Xiao Su waved his hand at her. It was already a foregone conclusion. Chu Qingyan could only accept her fate and walk out of the room. At this time, she met Hualing, who was preparing to go in to report. When he saw his little princess consort's dejected appearance, he couldn't help teasing. Master is covered in dark clouds today. Did the dark clouds turn sunny? Chu Qingyan pointed at her face. Seeing me like this, do you still think there's a chance of it turning sunny? Hualing shook his head with a smile. You shouldn't run around in the future. It's not safe outside. Master is just worried about you. Chu Qingyan wanted to cry. She had just been punished a few days ago and she was being punished again today. How could she tell that he was worried about her? Wasn't this worry a little too obvious? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.